In the distant past, energy barriers were created to protect humanity, and soon after they were deployed as a pillar of energy shot up into the sky, but they failed, and monsters known as disaster beasts attacked the human world. With that, a horde of creatures invaded the cities, terrorizing the entire population. In this tragedy, a boy's father shoves him, screaming for him to run as a monster attacks him. Everywhere, the blue flame creature caused chaos and destruction. The demonic beast seemed to be enjoying all the suffering it was causing. Then, the little boy's mother hugs him to shield him from the creature's attack, and says her last words, telling Itsuki Tenma to run before vanishing. Suddenly, Itsuki Tenma wakes up from his nightmare to someone calling his name. A classmate asks him what's wrong, seeing him so spaced out, but he says it's nothing. The girl gives him a suspicious look and asks if he's telling the truth. She then asks why he's crying, and he's surprised to notice a tear. Just then, a friend shows up, joking about whether he's sleepy and points to a strange-looking teacher. The instructor explains about the awakened who fight against the beasts and warns of a new invasion. His friend with glasses points to Commander Mendo Izumi and asks how Itsuki, being from the north, doesn't know him, but the guy thought he'd be some old dude with a beard. His buddy explains that despite his looks, he was the very first awakened, and all knowledge about the monsters and monoliths came from him. On top of that, he's the strongest awakened, and even Gentana, humanity's hope, was one of his students. The commander then reveals that research shows ordinary people can awaken just by touching a monolith. That's why he says he came, so that everyone can become awakened and dedicate themselves to the war against the disaster beasts. At that moment, a massive black monolith erupts from the ground, releasing a golden energy. The students are blown away by the scene, and one of them even prays to become an awakened. Itsuki's friend gets hyped for the chance to awaken, while the MC looks determined to make it happen. Itsuki starts walking toward the stone, and his classmates tell him to wait and get in line. The pink-haired girl watches him with concern as he walks forward with a dark expression. With his eyes glowing red, he gives a creepy smile and says the day has finally come, showing a side no one knew. A student touches the monolith but fails to awaken, and the guard calls for the next in line. Other students comment that if even the school's record holder couldn't do it, it's impossible for them, but one girl says it's too early to give up. Several others try and fail one after another, as the guard keeps calling the next person. Everyone starts complaining that no one has awakened yet, and one of them fears the entire school will be eliminated. The guard in sunglasses calls the next in line, whose name is Hikaru Oshi. Some students get worried since the guy is a bully, but one of them points out that the monolith is reacting. Suddenly, the boy's body begins to float, surrounded by a powerful electric energy. Then a status screen appears, revealing he's a lightning elementalist with 12 total points, and he thinks he's finally going to get noticed. A blue-haired woman tells her father they got 1, and says his attributes are 12 when they should have only been 5. The newly awakened boy celebrates with an arrogant smirk and wonders if old man Mendo has anything to say to him. But just then, Itsuki Tenma appears behind him and grabs his shoulder, surprising the bully. The guy spins around, furious, yelling at Itsuki to get his hands off him and asking if he has a death wish. The other students wonder who's cutting the line, and one of them recognizes Itsuki, saying he's toast for ticking off Ushi. Meanwhile, the commander's assistant comments that she feels an intense emotion coming from that student. Itsuki thinks about how he has burned the hatred for the beasts into his mind, so he'll never forget, and the commander notices his determination is different. Commander Mendo Izumi watches the scene intently, his eyes focused on the boy. The instant he touches the stone, it reacts with an explosion of blue-green energy. Then, a gigantic spiritual entity appears behind Itsuki, showcasing its immense power. The energy expands, forming a structure that resembles a lotus flower, enveloping the entire area. All the students are left speechless, and one of them comments that the energy flower is way bigger than the bullies. With that, his friends celebrate proudly, shouting that's at their Itsuki. The commander's assistant explains this only happens with the rarest class, the Order Breaker, and he wonders just how capable the boy is. Meanwhile, Hikaru Ushi, the school bully, has a look of pure shock and rage at being outshined. Itsuki finds himself in a strange place and wonders if he has finally awakened his powers. He then realizes he's sitting in the center of the giant lotus flower made of pure energy. In front of him, a status screen appears, revealing his rare class and a Z rank ability called Hypermimesis. But when he looks at his attributes, he panics when he sees they're all at 0. Suddenly, a notification pops up, saying his Nirvana gift has been activated, raising all his stats to 200. The boy smiles confidently, understanding that he can get stronger by learning skills through mimesis. He then declares with conviction that he has become an awakened, and that he will wipe out every last disaster beast. The light from the lotus flower becomes so intense it blinds all the nearby students. As the light fades, Itsuki's silhouette can be seen in front of the monolith. The school bully can't believe what he's seeing, shocked by the boy's power. The assistant says it's hard to believe a rookie has those stats, and the commander confirms he is the strongest among the new awakened in history. His status screen showed a total of 800 points, with 200 in each attribute. The other students students and even the teachers celebrate his historic achievement, but the bully is furious, his eyes red with rage, thinking Itsuki stole his thunder. He then unleashes his electric energy and calls the MC a loser. Floating in the air, he prepares his Silver Serpent ability to attack Itsuki. At that moment, Itsuki's system detects the C rank ability and activates Hypermimesis. To analyze it, the analysis of the ability progresses rapidly as he watches the attack approach. The lightning bolt slams into the ground, but Itsuki is no longer there. His classmates are shocked by his disappearance, and the bully looks for him, completely confused. Suddenly, Itsuki appears behind him and grabs him by the head, paralyzing the boy with fear. With a menacing look, he tells the bully to consider himself lucky he's human. Other students comment on how Ushi was so scared he couldn't even stand up. The analysis of the skill is almost complete, and he notes the insane speed of the process. Finally, the analysis reaches 100%, and he acquires the Thunder Wave ability. The electric energy flashes again, and one student complains about the bright light while another is thankful for his sunglasses. Itsuki realizes he enters this mental space every time an analysis is completed, and the screen shows the details of the new ability. Back in reality, he manifests his newly acquired power, enveloping his body in a powerful aura of electricity. His classmates notice that his energy is much brighter than Ushi's, and the bully furiously wonders how he managed to learn that technique. With a dark look, he can hardly believe his stats went up again, and the screen shows his total power is now 840. Suddenly, the weather changes and it starts to rain, leaving everyone confused, and one of them notices something falling from the sky. Then, a huge black monolith emerges from the clouds and begins to fall at high speed toward the school. The assistant panics at the object's appearance, and the commander cancels the gathering, ordering everyone to evacuate the courtyard immediately. She then suggests they should also run as combat isn't their specialty, and she seems terrified, but the commander says that if they run, everyone will panic, and he points to a boy who has more courage than they do. While everyone flees in desperation, Itsuki walks alone toward the danger, and the assistant yells, asking why he isn't running. The monolith then lands with a violent impact in the middle of the courtyard, kicking up a large cloud of dust and debris. His friends shout a warning that a disaster beast is coming, but with a dark look, he just thinks he's going to wipe them all out. His friend with glasses says he'll get himself taken out if he doesn't run, and the girl agrees that this is an opponent for a newly awakened person. But Itsuki turns to them, and with a calm and confident look, simply asks them to trust him. His friend yells at him not to blame him if he gets offed, and the girl wonders if they should really let him go up against a killing machine. With a sinister grin, Itsuki prepares to face his first enemy as an awakened. He says it's the same type of monster that took his parents' lives, and that today is his lucky day. The skeleton soldier status screen appears, revealing its level 8 with a total of 295 points. He then decides to test the new ability he just learned and prepares to attack. Itsuki charges at high speed toward the creature, surrounded by a powerful aura of electricity. With a determined look, he declares that he won't let anyone else be taken from him. His strike lands squarely on the skeletal monster's chest, causing a massive impact. The power of the attack is so overwhelming that it sends the creature flying through the air with incredible force. The others are shocked by his strength, and the assistant comments that he sent the beast flying into the building with a single blow. The commander notes that his speed and power are incredible but says it's impossible to defeat a skeleton soldier because of its abilities. He explains that the creature's second ability is called Bone Fire, and it burns the body to ashes with just a touch. His friends panic and scream Itsuki's name, desperate over the situation. Meanwhile, the bully laughs maniacally, saying Itsuki doesn't know his place and is about to be turned to ash. But his system detects the B rank ability and activates Hypermimesis. To analyze it, the commander's assistant thinks with concern that even a level 10 awakened would be defeated by a direct hit from that ability. The assistant laments that a genius will be gone so soon, but the MC feels his body burn and thinks about how painful that must have been. At that moment, he remembers his mother being consumed by the same blue flames that are attacking him now, but the commander watches him closely, wondering if the boy has shown his full power yet. Even with his body on fire, he declares that as soon as the analysis is done, the monster is finished, and the process hits 100%. One of the students laments that it was too soon for a rookie, but another points out that the blue lotus flower has appeared again. Enveloped by the flower's energy, his body begins to regenerate, and he wonders what skill he'll learn this time. The system screen shows that he learned Black Ice Wall, and his stats have risen to a total of 920. The blue lotus flower opens completely in his mental space, symbolizing his recovery and power. Floating among the energy petals, his body is fully healed and stronger than before. His friends celebrate with relief upon seeing him alive, and one of them shouts that his full recovery is a miracle. The assistant is shocked and wonders how he has a healing ability, but the commander explains that his class is the most mysterious of all. The commander observes the boy's perfect recovery and questions the limits of that ability. Back in the fight, he faces the blue flames, and his arm begins to be covered by a layer of ice. With his entire body protected by his new ice armor, he remains unharmed within the skeleton's fire. The skeleton soldier is is surprised to see that its most powerful attack had no effect on the boy. The ice armor completely shields him from the blue flames, and his eye glows with power. With that, he creates a giant dragon of ice and thunder that charges at the monster. Then, the dragon transforms into a colossal sword ready for the final blow. Itsuki then delivers a powerful slash that obliterates the skeleton soldier into pieces. The students are shocked by his speed, and one of them comments that it looked like he teleported. The commander's assistant can't believe he's a rookie, and the bully is left speechless. After the victory, his ice armor dissipates, revealing a divine level ability. At that moment, he hears someone calling his name and turns to see who it is. His friend hugs him in relief, but the MC is only worried about where Sayo is. His buddy explains that she was right there, looking like she was about to cry, but he doesn't know where she went. Itsuki looks at the crowd and wonders if the pink-haired girl got mad at him. The assistant is impressed with the victory, and the commander tells her to handle the cleanup because he's taking the boy. His friend tries to calm him down, saying she went to touch the monument so she wouldn't be left behind, and he says he hopes so. Suddenly, a mysterious voice calls out for Itsuki Tenma, and his friend turns in surprise. It was Commander Mendo Izumi, who was now standing right in front of Itsuki. The students watch and speculate whether the commander will recruit him as a disciple, but one of them thinks it's impossible, as only the strongest ever earned that honor. Itsuki's friend feels awkward about the situation and says he'll go look for Sayo to give them some space. The commander then turns to the boy and says he's quite special, leaving him intrigued. Itsuki is confused by the compliment and wonders what he means by that. Mendo Izumi comments that it seems the boy's heart is filled with anger and hatred. The man then says he wants to know the reason behind all that dark feeling. Itsuki then begins to tell him that 10 years ago, his parents were taken out by a disaster beast while protecting him. The memory of that traumatic day comes rushing back, showing his childhood desperation. He continues explaining that he almost met a Zen too, but was saved by an awakened right in front of him. At that moment, he had to watch his mother be consumed by the flames and say her last words. The little boy could only scream for his mom amidst the despair and pain of loss. He blames himself for what happened to his parents, but quickly transforms his sorrow into pure rage. He glares at the demonic creature he considers the root of all evil in that world. With his eyes glowing red with hatred, he made a vow on that fateful day. He swore that he would exterminate that demon and its entire kind without any mercy. The commander asks how he can cry even with a heart corroded by hatred. The MC explains that after the tragedy, his left eye stopped producing tears, but his right eye started crying on its own. Mendo Izumi invites him to be his student and join the Saviors League to get his revenge, and he's surprised by the name. He explains that the League is an organization with the best awakened to fight against the beasts, and its members are called Saviors. The commander adds that they receive training, weapons, and high rewards like 10,000 gold a month, which is enough to buy a car, but he warns that the treatment isn't free, as they must fight on the front lines and protect people. Itsuki says he doesn't care about rewards or resources, because the most important thing to him is something else. With eyes shining with determination, he declares that he wants to become a savior to fight on the front lines against the beasts. The commander explains about the League's national tournament and that only the top 100 ranked become saviors. Itsuki then asks what the all-time record for points is, and he replies that it's not a good benchmark. He reveals that the record is 115,000 points, set by Taiwajan 11 years ago. The MC recalls that Taiwajan is known as the light of humanity and the strongest awakened. The commander advises him not to compare himself to Jin, so he doesn't get discouraged, but says he has the potential to fight by his side. With unshakable determination, Itsuki declares that he will surpass the legendary Taiwajan. Commander Mendo Izumi watches the boy and seems pleased with his ambition and confidence. Elsewhere, Taiwajin thinks about how the youth look up to him but warns that a war isn't won just by following someone. Commander Mendo Izumi thinks that the morning sun he had been waiting for has finally risen. Itsuki sees a huge building and asks what that place is, and the commander begins to explain that the stone monuments are like portals to the world of the disaster beasts. That's why just eliminating the creatures doesn't solve the problem, as new ones will keep appearing. That building was constructed to isolate the monuments and serves as a training ground. Itsuki understands that it's a training facility, and the commander calls it a stage. He warns that the beasts there are tough and the place is known as the Rookie Graveyard. He then reveals that Jin Taiwajan cleared that stage in 3 minutes and 14 seconds when he was a rookie. The commander then challenges him to beat that time and tells him to try for 3 minutes. If he can clear the stage in that time, he promises to make him his student. As they enter the place, people recognize the commander and wonder about the rookie by his side. Itsuki is surprised by the man's fame and wonders just how well known he is. A screen shows that the stage level is 10, 2 levels above the skeleton soldiers he faced. He overhears the crowd speculating about his identity, and some even think he's there to hit on the receptionist. Itsuki approaches the receptionist and says he'd like to enter the stage, and she asks how many people will be participating. With a serious look, he replies that he's going into the challenge alone, leaving the woman surprised by his confidence. The receptionist and the other people around are stunned by his decision to go alone. The woman gets annoyed and scolds him, saying that this is a dangerous place where he could get taken out, and he doesn't understand her reaction. The crowd starts laughing at him, thinking he's confusing the stage with a place for a date. He then cuts her off, saying she's got it all wrong and that he has zero interest in her. Tired of the situation, she offers him her numbers so he'll stop playing hard to get and just go home. With a dark look, he tells her not to make him repeat himself and that the only thing he wants is to enter the stage. Frightened, she finally gives in and hands him a bracelet, saying she's not responsible if he gets himself offed. The others call him an idiot and comment that a level 0 rookie challenging a level 10 stage is suicide. One of them notes his confidence and special gift, but another says that level is what matters most and the gift won't do him any good. Standing before the entrance gate, he thinks that his information is on the bracelet and he just needs to scan it to enter. He then scans the object and a screen confirms his entry into the stage challenge has been approved. Once inside, he gets ready and says the promise is 3 minutes and it's time to start. Immediately, a digital timer appears on the screen and the countdown begins. Itsuki charges forward with his eyes glowing red, unleashing a powerful aura. He runs toward the monument in a vast field, thinking the inside is bigger than he imagined. With a determined look, he senses the approaching danger and tells himself that it's coming. A wooden creature called a kodama appears in front of him, and he kicks it hard, sending it flying. With his eyes red with power, he creates an ice blade on his arm and attacks the monster. He then taunts the creature, asking how it feels to see its friend get sliced in half. Furious, an army of kodamas charges toward him, and he calls them piles of rotten wood. Meanwhile, the assistant questions why the commander sent him to such a difficult stage. She says that surpassing Taiwajan is impossible, and the commander corrects her, saying that he's no longer human. The woman remembers seeing Taiwajan take down a level 97 beast and how his eyes looked at that moment. She describes his eyes as cold, lonely, and transcendent, something that didn't seem human. To her, those weren't the eyes of a man, but the eyes of a god. The commander agrees and says the boy has potential that rivals Taiwajan's, but he's still a diamond in the rough. He concludes that if Taiwajan is a god who saves people, then Tenma is a demon consumed by hatred. Back in the fight, Itsuki thinks that a beast of this level doesn't even activate his hypermimesis ability. Suddenly, he finds himself facing a giant creature with red eyes glowing in the darkness. He charges forward with a powerful spinning attack, destroying everything in his path with incredible force. Standing before the creature's remains, he wonders with disdain if that's all the monster can do. He's suspicious of how easy the fight was and notices that the system has detected a self-regeneration ability. The analysis of the ability begins, and the screen shows its progress at 5%. Surprised, he sees the monster's body completely regenerate right in front of him. The status screen reveals that the regenerated Kodama now has a total of 450 points. He then activates his black ice wall and attacks the creature with a powerful punch. With his eyes glowing red, he rushes forward to prevent the monster from regenerating again. He delivers a series of quick and precise slashes with his blades all over the beast's body. His final blow is a powerful vertical slash that splits the creature in half with a single move. The monster's body begins to crack from the inside, showing the extent of the damage he caused. With a sadistic smile, he says he's gonna chop it into little pieces, so it can't regenerate anymore. With one last effort, he concentrates all his energy into his hands and prepares the finishing blow. The creature's body then explodes into countless pieces, putting a definitive end to its existence. He thinks that using Black Ice Wall is draining his mana but believes he can handle it. However, the wooden creature regenerates once more with impressive speed. He gets hit squarely by the monster's branches, but gets annoyed that it hasn't been defeated yet. He notices that every time he defends, the ability's analysis progresses faster. The best strategy is to keep defending until the analysis is complete, but time is running out. With time running out, he focuses on using his abilities more efficiently. He decides to activate his Ice and Thunder abilities at the same time to speed up the analysis even more. He knows that if Hypermimesis doesn't activate without mana, he's a goner. The analysis continues to progress as he dodges the wooden creature's attacks. He thinks that if he meets his end here, it's because he wasn't strong enough to carry out his revenge. With his eyes red with fury, he prepares for a final attack with all his remaining strength. He drives his ice blade into the creature's skull, causing massive damage. Exhausted, he curses as he feels his strength draining away after so much effort. His body is pierced by several branches, and he realizes his mana has run out. But with a victorious smile, he realizes that Hypermimesis doesn't need mana and declares that victory is his. The analysis of self-regeneration reaches 100%, and he acquires the Lotus Burst ability. The system screen describes the new ability as an explosive attack that scales with mana consumption. Additionally, the ability grants him 20 points in all stats and heals his wounds. He then prepares to use his new ability and activates Lotus Burst. first. With a hand gesture, he concentrates all his energy for the final blow. A massive explosion of red energy in the shape of a lotus hits the monster head on. The force of the explosion is so overwhelming that it completely disintegrates the wooden creature. With a cut on his face, he comments that the lotus burst ability isn't half bad. He realizes that with this ability, dealing with low-level beasts will be much easier. In the middle of the crater, he wonders about a shining object that appeared there. Outside the stage, the receptionist panics when she sees he's been in there for almost 3 minutes. The commander's assistant believes he won't lose but doubts he can do it in 3 minutes. Suddenly, the monitor screen turns green and announces that a new record has been set. The assistant is shocked and can't believe what she's seeing on the monitor screen. The screen shows that the challenge was successfully completed in 2 minutes and 14 seconds, updating the record. The stage door opens and Itsuki comes out, injured but victorious, with the new record to his name. Everyone is shocked to see him come out alive and a minute faster than the legendary Teiwajin. He then turns to the commander and asks if he's officially going to be his instructor now. With a confident smile and a bruised face, he finally calls the man teacher. The commander praises him, saying it was well done, as expected of his student, and the assistant is surprised by her father's happiness. The crowd goes wild upon discovering he's Commander Izumi's student, but one of them questions his potential for being level 0. The receptionist approaches, embarrassed, and hands him a gift for breaking the record, apologizing for her rudeness. He accepts the gift and says he understands her concern, as it was reckless of him. With a kind smile, he thanks her for her concern, and the woman is left completely flustered by the compliment. The assistant tells him to go on ahead, and he follows her without question. She warns him not to get a big head just because he's her father's student, and he humbly agrees. The commander then suggests that with his level, he could challenge an advanced stage, and the MC is curious. He explains that the most important factor for a beast's strength isn't just its level. The assistant adds that the most important factor is the creature's species. She explains that there are species with intelligence equal to or greater than humans, which are much more dangerous. She continues explaining that humans have classes, but beasts have their stats defined by their species. She then reveals that his next destination will be North District 4, where most of the advanced stages are located. With a dark look, he asks if intelligent beasts feel pain, and the assistant is frightened by his aura. Meanwhile, other awakened comment on Izumi's challenge, and one of them mentions that the stages in District 4 are dangerous. One of the men reveals that all the awakened who entered those stages have disappeared, and another mentions the name Reiji Kaneshita. One of them scolds him for saying the man's name out loud and warns him that he could be erased for it. Elsewhere, Reiji Kaneshita, the son of the North District's chief, is seen relaxing and being served by a subordinate. A man asks when he will depart, and he arrogantly replies that all the stages are under his control. With a smug smile, he says that waiting in line is for commoners, showing his disdain. Back with Itsuki, he opens the box he received and finds a glowing stone inside. He recognizes the object and remembers seeing a similar one before in one of his battles. The commander asks if he's seen a karma stone before, and the MC holds the object in his hand. He remembers the green stone he found and notices there's a slight difference between the two. Then he realizes the difference is the color. The stone he found was green. The assistant is shocked and reveals that it was an intermediate karma stone, found in a beginner stage. The assistant explains that karma stones are also known as experience stones. She says that when a beast or an awakened perishes, an invisible substance called karma emerges from the body. She concludes that using a karma stone allows you to absorb the experience and level up, but she finds it strange that a stone formed in that stage, as they don't appear naturally. The commander interjects, saying it was probably because of Tema's gift. The assistant is confused by the statement and asks what the gift has to do with it. The commander explains that normally, the karma of the defeated is absorbed by the victor, but Tenma didn't level up. He theorizes that the karma from the beast that attacked the school was absorbed by the other awakened present. The assistant completes the line of thought, saying that in other words, they absorbed the karma. But since the stage is a sealed space, the karma solidified and became a stone because it had nowhere to go. The assistant then asks how his stats increase if he can't level up, and he's left without an answer. The commander scolds her, reminding her that an awakened's gift is confidential, and she apologizes. He then tells the MC that he can keep the stone and informs him that he'll be away for a while. The commander then gives him 4 orders: keep their relationship a secret, don't talk about his gift, clear 6 stages, and do what he thinks is right. With a confident smile, Itsuki agrees to all of his new master's orders. Elsewhere, some students are blocked by guards, and one of them shouts that the stage has been reserved by the Kaneshita family. The guys refuse to leave, and one says they'll just go in first since the heir hasn't arrived yet. They threaten to report the situation to the awakened guild, but are intimidated by a shadowy figure. One of the students attacks the guard with an earth spike ability, but it's easily blocked. The muscular man in sunglasses defends the attack with his arm without showing any effort. The boy's ability clashes against the guard's arm, arm but causes no damage. The student is shocked to see that his B rank ability didn't work and can't believe it. The guard then glares at him with his eyes glowing red and says that didn't even tickle. The boy is terrified to realize that his technique, which pierces anything, was useless and calls the man a monster. The guard then grabs him by the neck with immense force, lifting him off the ground. In the blink of an eye, he defeats both students without them being able to react. Other awakened recognize the man as Takeru Oga, one of Reiji Kinishita's 4 pillars. He then warns that anyone who tries to enter the stage without permission will not be forgiven, and that resistance will meet the same fate. He holds the 2 unconscious students by the neck and tells everyone not to even think about helping them. Other guards arrive and one advises Takeru not to overdo it, as the teacher is watching. Takeru scoffs at the warning and prepares to continue his assault on the fallen students. But at that moment, Itsuki and the assistant arrive and stop him from continuing. The crowd is shocked by his attitude, and one of them comments that he's a goner for being level 0. Takeru threatens him, saying no one enters without permission and that he'll meet the same fate as the others. Itsuki understands that he needs to defeat him to enter, and the assistant tries to contact the administration. He stops her, saying it's not necessary, and remembers his master's words to do what's right. He then asks her to take care of the injured while he handles the situation with the guard. Takeru underestimates the MC for being level 0 and wonders if he's brave because of his rare class. He feels pressured by Itsuki's aura but trusts in the difference in level and stats between them. With a furious look, he prepares to attack the boy with all his strength. He focuses for the attack, but Itsuki is faster and charges first. The reflection of Itsuki running toward him appears in Takeru's eye, showing his speed. Before he could react, the hero is already in front of him and hits him with a powerful punch. The other awakened are shocked by his speed, and one doubts he could keep up even being level 8. The blow lands squarely on Takeru's metallic face, causing a huge impact. Takeru manages to catch the punch with his hands and praises the boy's speed with an arrogant smile. But he says he lacks power and attacks him with a powerful kick that sends him flying. Itsuki realizes he needs to increase his agility to land a surprise attack. His status screen reveals he has 1000 total points and that Hyper Mimesis has detected the metallization ability. He's surprised by the ability's activation and decides it's time to get serious. He understands that normal attacks won't work and decides to aim for the non-metallic parts of his body. With a quick push, he charges toward the guard again, his feet firm on the ground. Takeru taunts him, calling him weak with no power and no speed, as he prepares to counterattack. Itsuki then decides to use Thunder Wave to further increase his speed and catch the guard off guard. The guard is surprised to see the lightning ability, and the MC says he won't have time to metalize. With his increased speed, he delivers a barrage of punches to the guard as the ability's analysis progresses. The other awakened are shocked and wonder how he can use abilities from another class. Takeru gets desperate with the boy's speed and realizes that at this rate, he's going to lose the fight. He yells for help from his comrades, but can't even give the command because of the attacks. Cornered and out of options, he decides he has no choice but to try that as a last resort. With a roar of fury, Takeru unleashes all his power and prepares for his transformation. He metalizes his entire body and thanks Itsuki for cornering him and forcing him to evolve. He explains that his defense now exceeds 500 points with the bonuses from his ability and gift. With a wicked smile, he says he'll let him go without pain as a thank you for helping him master the new technique. The other awakened are shocked by his defense, and one says that not even someone of the same level could break it. Itsuki theorizes that full metalization consumes a lot of mana and that his must not be very high. Takeru is surprised by the boy's sharp intuition and wonders how a level 0 can be so perceptive. He then says he won't use a war of attrition and that he'll end the fight in an instant because the analysis is complete. The assistant notices the blue lotus flower and realizes that Tenma is getting stronger by the moment. The others wonder if that's a level 0 ability and doubt he can win with it. The system screen reveals the new ability, Truth Piercing Orb, which ignores the enemy's defense. With a determined look, he declares that he will smash Takeru's absolute defense to pieces. His stats increase again and he fully recovers, enveloped by the lotus flower's energy. He then creates the energy orb and challenges the guard to try and dodge the attack. The other awakened are shocked by the ability and one comments that there's no way that isn't ridiculous. The black energy orb floats in the air, surrounded by a bright purple aura. The small sphere hovers in the middle of the crowd, who watch the scene with curiosity and amazement. The other awakened mock the ability, thinking such a small ball is disappointing. Takeru laughs with disdain and says such a weak attack won't even be able to nullify his gift. He glares at the floating orb and says if that's Itsuki's ace in the hole. With a confident smile, he declares that the boy will meet a pathetic end, and the orb hits his chest. The instant the orb touches him, he realizes the danger, and his face contorts in surprise. The orb pierces his defense and his metallic body begins to bleed and shatter. Itsuki says he showed mercy because he's human, but that he would have aimed for the neck if it were a beast. He then turns to the other guards and asks what they're waiting for to take him to the hospital. With a cold and an authoritative look, he yells for them to get out of his sight immediately. The guards pick up Takeru's injured body and hastily carry him away. The assistant and the other students celebrated Suki's unexpected victory. The two students who were defeated earlier invite him to form a party and clear the stage, but one of them disagrees, saying that fewer people means more experience for each person. Itsuki realizes the stage is perfect for increasing the speed of his piercing orb. The students ask which of the two he will choose to join his party. With a determined look, he replies that he will enter the stage alone, leaving everyone surprised. They are shocked by his decision, and one of them says he's getting cocky after beating Oga. The assistant warns him that he's pushing his luck, and the students give up on forming a party with him. She questions if his mana will hold up against so many enemies with high defense, and he reassures her. She gets annoyed with his calmness and says she only asked so she wouldn't get the blame if he gets himself taken out. She warns him that the stone beasts move in groups, and that he should be careful with his mana consumption. He then scans his bracelet, and his entry to the advanced stage is approved. Inside the stage, he faces a horde of stone monsters and realizes there are more than he expected. The stone creatures charge toward him, ready to attack with their claws and fangs. The status screen reveals that a stone statue has a total of 460 points with a defense of 295. He then decides to test his piercing orb and see if the monsters meet the ability's passive condition. The purple energy orb materializes in his hand and he activates the Truth Piercing Orb ability. He launches the orb toward one of the stone creatures with impeccable precision. The orb passes through the stone statue with ease, and the system screen confirms the monster's defeat. With a victorious smile, he realizes the orb's speed has increased by 100%. He then faces the horde of stone monsters charging toward him, ready for combat. With his eyes glowing red, he says that these slow creatures are the perfect targets for his orb. He launches his orb repeatedly, and the system screen shows he still has mana for 2 more attacks. He realizes there are 3 enemies left and that the boss hasn't appeared yet, which makes him anxious. He then decides he needs to defeat 2 enemies with a single attack to conserve mana. He concentrates his energy and launches the orb at a precise angle to hit both creatures. The moment the orb is about to hit the target, he jumps to position himself for the next attack. With a sadistic smile and red eyes, he prepares to launch his orb at the last monster. He launches the orb with all his strength in a precise and devastating aerial attack. The system screen confirms the defeat of 2 more creatures and the increase in the orb's speed. Exhausted and out of mana, he falls to the ground and complains about the awful feeling of being out of energy. He then opens the status screen and realizes that with the orb's new speed, he can hit targets 5 meters per second. The system screen describes the Truth Piercing Orb ability and its maximum speed increase of 500%. Suddenly, the ground trembles, and a giant fist emerges from the earth right in front of him. The impact of the fist kicks up a large cloud of dust and debris, showing the force of the attack. The stage boss, a giant stone statue, appears and activates its gigantification ability. The status screen reveals the monster is level 15 with a total of 777 points and a defense of 478. He's impressed by the creature size and activates his Thunderbreaker ability to increase his agility. He wonders if he can pierce the creature with his orb and runs toward it. He decides to aim for the giant monster's head to try and cause the maximum possible damage. He finds an opening and launches his piercing orb with all his strength toward the weak point, but he realizes the orb is too small to cause significant damage to the giant monster. The stone creature attacks him with a powerful punch, and he tries to dodge in mid-air. He realizes he can't dodge the attack in mid-air and panics about the situation. At the last second, he activates his black wall to protect himself from the fist's impact. The collision between the fist and the wall creates a large explosion of energy and debris. He realizes that gigantification is an ability and that this helps him activate his hypermimesis. With his body injured, he admits the giant creature is tougher than he expected. Elsewhere, a man is startled by a call and Reiji Kinoshita scolds him for making noise. The man apologizes and Reiji asks what happened that was so serious it had to interrupt him. He then reveals that someone defeated Oga and forced their way into the stage they had reserved. Reiji is furious at the news and wonders what idiot would dare to challenge him. The subordinate explains that the awakened above level 30 are busy with the stone monuments. He adds that most of the challengers for that stage are rookies around level 10. Reiji doubts a rookie could defeat Oga, and the man offers to investigate the situation. He dismisses the investigation and says they will handle the problem personally, as the stage is time-consuming. With a furious look, he yells at his subordinate to get moving and not make him repeat the order. The man agrees, frightened by his master's reaction, and prepares to leave immediately. Reiji then declares that he will make whoever it is regret messing with the Kinoshita family. Back in the fight, the analysis of gigantification reaches 100%, and Itsuki recovers. The giant stone statue prepares for a new attack with a blue energy glowing on its forehead. The system screen informs him that the analysis is complete, but he notices he didn't gain a new ability. He then opens the status screen and sees that his piercing orb has leveled up to level 2 with new effects. He notices the passive bonus has doubled, and best of all, he can change the orb size using mana. Enveloped in an aura of energy, he fully recovers and decides to test his new power immediately. The system screen confirms his orb has leveled up, healing his wounds and adjusting his stats to his new strength. He then channels all his remaining mana to create the most powerful piercing orb he can summon. The gigantic purple energy orb descends slowly toward the stone monster with overwhelming power. With that, the attack transforms into a beam of energy that pierces through the giant golem with devastating force. With a sadistic smile, he asks if he overdid it a little, and the screen shows his mana has been completely depleted. The system then confirms the golem's defeat and the increase of his orb's speed by 200%. Itsuki then picks up the karma stone the creature left behind and calculates his ability's new speed. A screen shows the orb's details and its passive effect that increases its speed with each enemy defeated. With a confident smile, he realizes his orb's range will also increase because of another ability. He understands he can increase the range of his abilities, and that one day he'll be able to attack enemies from miles away. Meanwhile, outside, the monitor announces that the challenge was successfully completed and a new record has been set. The other awakened are shocked by the time, and one of them points out he broke the legendary Jin Taiwa's record. But when he comes out, everyone wonders if the announcement was a mistake, as he's still level 0 and looks almost unharmed. The commander's assistant notes that he came out unscathed again and broke Jin's record. Thinking the boy never ceases to surprise her, with a serious look, she comments that he was surprisingly fast. He explains the beast was weak against defense piercing, so it was easy, and suddenly a butterfly of light lands on his hand. The blue-haired woman introduces herself as a Shikigami user and says the little creature is her familiar, the jade butterfly. Itsuki is amazed by the butterfly and says it's the first time he's seen a Shikigami and that it's beautiful. He takes the opportunity to ask about the types of jobs awakened have, and she's surprised he doesn't know something so basic. The woman then explains that the jobs are divided into 4 categories and that he has probably already seen 3 of them. She says the first are elementalists who control one of the 7 elements and are the most common and have the highest combat power. She recalls that his classmate, Hikaru Ushi, is an example of a lightning-type elementalist. Next, she mentions that Takeru Oga, the one he fought earlier, is also a metal-type elementalist. The second category is Shikigami users, who can summon a familiar that obeys only them in battle. She reveals her name, Eiji Izumi, and explains that the Shikigami accompanies its master from birth. With a confident smile, Eiji asks if he has any questions about what she's explained so far. Itsuki then points out that her Shikigami is of a higher level and asks if she's really a veteran awakened. The direct question hits Ajia hard, and she wonders if the boy has any tact at all. The commander's assistant explains that Shikigami also absorb experience and level up, which is why they are always stronger than their masters. With a dark look, he realizes that when fighting a Shikigami user, it's faster to attack the human directly. The woman notices his negative aura leaking out again, and wonders what's wrong with the boy. Itsuki then interrupts her and asks about the other categories, as she has only mentioned 2 so far. She then reveals that the third job is the most mysterious of all, with very little information available about it. Agia then says she's talking about his class, the Order Breaker, leaving the MC surprised by the revelation. She explains that the reason for the mystery is that each Order Breaker has completely different abilities, like his blue lotus flower. The woman continues, saying there are others who control their body size, create infinite clones, or stretch like rubber. She shows that normal abilities range from C rank to S rank, but Order Breakers possess exclusive Z rank techniques. Because of these unique abilities, if an enemy discovers them, they lose their greatest weapon, so discretion is essential. She calls him an irregular existence even among his class, as he has used at least 3 different abilities. Itsuki thinks it's no problem if she keeps talking about him. Since the teacher isn't around to hear, the MC then asks about the last job he hasn't seen yet, and she tells him to be quiet with a gesture. With a mischievous smile, she says she won't tell him as punishment for him not telling her anything about himself. He accepts defeat, and she takes the opportunity to say that the student he saved is fine and asks what he plans to do now. Itsuki says he's thinking of clearing the stage a few more times, but the woman informs him there's a 2-day cooldown. He's surprised by the news and understands how Kinoshita dominates the stages, deciding to focus on leveling up his other ability. The MC then asks the commander's assistant if there's any stage with a large number of disaster beasts. With a confident smile, the blue-haired woman understands what he wants and says there is a place that should work for him. She describes the Locust Desert, a place with over 1,000 low-level beasts that most awakened avoid. The woman warns him that without an area of effect attack, it will be very difficult, and asks if he's sure he wants to go. With a smile, he confirms he's going in and thinks she doesn't know he has a long-range attack. Eiji insists that he'll suffer without an area ability, but the MC reassures her, saying he'll be fine. The other Awaken wonder if he has a death wish, and one of them fears that Reiji Kinoshita will show up for revenge. They then decide to leave to avoid being caught in the crossfire, and Reiji's men arrive but find no one. The subordinate informs him that the target has already left, and the purple-haired man gets angry upon hearing he cleared the stage in 30 minutes. The man in the suit confirms it's hard hard to believe and asks for his boss's orders, who seems furious. The boss says that if he used an ability, he must have left mana traces and tells him to contact the Hound to track him. Filled with rage, he orders them to capture him alive, as he will make him experience a living nightmare as punishment. In a dark alley, someone is hiding and regrets accepting a job to assassinate Reiji Kinoshita. The man thinks that if it weren't for his escape ability, he'd already be done for. He looks around in fear and believes he's safe now for having come so far, but suddenly, a creature resembling a giant wolf appears and lunges at him. The monster then bites down on him, giving him no time to react or try to escape. A mysterious man appears and says it looks like he has something to say and tells him to relax. The assassin then asks in despair how they managed to find him. The man in the hat replies that his creature, named Death, has a very keen sense of smell. He explains that the scent of demise the assassin exudes can be smelled by his familiar. With tears in his eyes, the man desperately begs him not to end him. With a cruel smile, Charles says he can't do that because Mr. Kinoshita would be mad at him. He then says his creature hasn't eaten human flesh in a long time and that it's mealtime. The creature then lunges with its sharp teeth to devour the assassin without mercy. After the meal, the wolf gets bigger and Charles comments that it has finally leveled up. The status screen reveals that the Death Hound is level 16 and has an ability to track the scent of demise. The man in the hat then answers a call on his cell phone and says the job is done. On the phone, Charles is surprised that Oga was seriously injured and wonders if they hit his weak spot, but he says he understands and is on his way. With that, he calls his wolf Death and excitedly says that new prey has just appeared. They arrive at the Locust Desert and Itsuki asks if this is the place. The boy looks at the wheat fields and wonders if there are really that many locusts around. The assistant explains that beasts choose environments they like and that predicting their type by the terrain is a basic skill, and he agrees. He notices there isn't even a receptionist, and the woman explains that the stage is so dangerous there's already a motion to get rid of it. The MC asks why they would close a level 13 stage, and she explains that normally you can run from a challenge, but she warns him that the creatures here are aggressive and their numbers are absurd. She says if he slips up for a second, he'll be surrounded by endless locusts and eaten alive. The woman finishes by saying they would pick him clean, down to the bone. With a smile, he says that's exactly what he wanted, and the woman asks in shock if he has a death wish. The MC then replies that he's not desperate enough to become bug food. She watches him enter the portal and, though worried, notices he seems quite confident. She thinks that he went in alone even after everything she warned him about, and that if he meets his end, it's on him. But suddenly, she panics as she remembers she forgot to tell him that the locusts spawn infinitely until the boss is gone, and decides to warn him. With a determined look, the commander's assistant decides to enter the stage to alert him of the imminent danger, but at that moment, Charles and his giant creature arrive and see her standing right in front of the challenge portal. With a sinister smile and his eyes glowing red, he says he's looking for someone. Meanwhile, inside the stage, Itsuki observes the wheat field and comments that the place is a mess. With a confident smile, he claps his hands and calls the pests for extermination time. Suddenly, a scarecrow appears in the middle of the field, and a huge swarm of locusts appears on the horizon. The system screen reveals that the creatures are very low level, which is perfect for his Lotus Burst ability. A gigantic horde of insects flies toward him, and he realizes the insane number of enemies. Enveloped in a fiery aura, he creates an energy lotus and says that this situation is perfect for him. He then prepares to attack and explains that the more they group up, the easier it will be to crush them all at once. The swarm of locusts descends upon him, and Itsuki shouts that now's the time. Immediately, he activates Lotus Burst, and a massive explosion of red energy decimates the insects. The system confirms the defeat of several locusts and the increase in the range of all his abilities. The screen shows that his abilities range has increased to 10.5 meters, and that he has already defeated 110 of them. Several notifications appear, confirming more defeats as he prepares to continue the massacre in the field. The MC calculates that with 10% of mana per shot, he can increase his range by 1000%. The screen shows he still has 252 mana, and he laments that the stage is a cooldown. He realizes the challenge success notification hasn't appeared and wonders what's going on. Suddenly, the system detects the C rank ability Matriarch's Will and begins to analyze it. He's surprised to realize there are still survivors after his devastating attack. The locust swarm regroups, and he finds himself surrounded by enemies again. With his ice armor, he defends himself and realizes he was careless to assume there wouldn't be a boss. He thinks it's lucky he can expand his range with the ability, but the problem is not knowing where the boss is hiding. Enveloped in his armor with the fire lotus, he decides he'll slaughter the small fry until the boss shows up. He launches another explosion, and the system confirms the defeat of more locusts and the increase of his range to 220%. The MC is impressed with the 16-meter range of his ability, and the system screen confirms the new power. He wonders why the boss still hasn't appeared even after he's wiped out so many swarms. Suddenly, he sees several eggs hatching and new locusts emerging from the ground. The MC realizes with frustration that the insects are respawning right in front of him. The system screen shows that the abilities analysis has reached 27% as he faces the new wave of enemies. The MC calculates he only has mana for 9 more bursts, and the system screen confirms 232 points remaining. Enveloped in fire and ice, he says it doesn't matter how many times they get back up. With a cry of fury, he declares that he will exterminate every single one of them without mercy. He then launches another explosion, and the system confirms the defeat of more locusts. The MC launches a series of consecutive explosions, wiping out wave after wave of insects. He continues attacking with increasingly powerful explosions as the swarm keeps advancing. The system screen shows that his abilities range is now 54.5 meters and that he has already defeated 990 of them. Exhausted, he realizes he only has mana for one last shot, and the insects keep coming endlessly. The MC faces the infinite horde and curses that there's no end to it and the boss still hasn't appeared. He then thinks he could retreat and try again after the analysis, but he rejects that idea. With a determined look, he refuses to have a loser's mentality and decides to keep fighting. With his eyes glowing red, he declares that it doesn't matter how many beasts there are, he will take down all of them. He then launches his final explosion with all his remaining strength, creating a gigantic crater. But even after the devastating attack, he realizes that at this rate, he won't last. He despairs upon seeing that the number of locusts has increased at all and that the situation is getting worse. He notices that all the beasts after the first wave were level 1, as if they had just been born. With that, he finally understands that the boss's ability is infinite reproduction. The system screen reveals the level 13 locust queen, with the ability to lay eggs and control her minions. He concludes that fighting is useless unless he takes out the source, but his mana is running out, and the analysis is almost complete. With one last effort, the analysis reaches 100%, and a blue energy sphere forms around him. The system confirms the acquisition of the Mana Sense ability, which detects the flow of energy and restores 10% of mana per detected enemy. With the new ability, he realizes he can recover mana for every enemy he detects and that the range reaches over 1,000 meters. With a wicked smile, he thinks he could let the boss live and keep farming the small fry, but decides against it. He remembers the commander's assistant is waiting for him and decides to finish the challenge for now. The screen confirms he has acquired the ability and that his stats have been increased and his wounds healed. With his power restored, he decides to use Mana Sense to locate the boss, and the screen adjusts his stats to his new strength. Waves of energy spread from him as he uses his new detection ability. He then feels the presence of the boss hidden right beneath his feet. With a determined look and a victorious smile, he says he's finally found her. He then prepares to attack the queen with his piercing orb now that he knows exactly where she is. With the piercing orb in hand, he says that hiding behind her own children is useless. With the passive from Lotus Burst, the orb can now reach her, and he launches the attack. The screen shows the orb's flight distance is 120 meters, and it advances with devastating force. The queen emerges from the ground to try to escape, but the attack is faster and hits her squarely. Enveloped in electricity and with his ice armor, he appears behind her for the final blow. With a sadistic smile, he declares it's checkmate and prepares his attack. With a single slash, he defeats her, and the creature's body disintegrates into particles of light. He observes that without the queen, the locusts have fallen into total chaos and scattered. With his hand in flames, he tells them not to worry, as he will send them to join their mother. He notices that the range of his abilities has increased to 65.5 meters and his orb to 131 meters. The system screen confirms the new power of his abilities and the total range increase of 1,210%. He picks up the Karma Stone and comments that it was a great haul and that he'll be back to level up more. A new record of 17 minutes and 7 seconds is set, and he leaves the stage, thinking Ajo must be worried. He imagines she'll probably give him the cold shoulder when he gets back. With a smile, he says he's back and apologizes for making her worry, but upon leaving he finds the assistant being held hostage, and his eyes glow red with fury. Charles, the man in the hat, says if he survived alone, then he must be the one Reiji is looking for. He reveals he was trying to get information from the assassin, but even in that state, the man didn't break. With a cold voice, Atsuki tells him to get his filthy hands off Ajiao, and that he'll leave him half gone if he obeys. Charles scoffs and calls him an arrogant level 0 rookie. Atsuki then charges with his lightning ability to attack the man in the hat. Charles is surprised by his speed and calls his Shikigami, Death, to protect him. The giant wolf intercepts the attack, and the MC hits it squarely with a powerful punch. The system detects the B-rank Shikigami and activates hypermimesis to analyze its abilities. Itsuki realizes the wolf is a Shikigami and that the man in the hat is a familiar user. Charles notes that his movements are precise, and that Oga probably lost because he didn't have time to defend himself. With a confident smile, he says he has his wolf in a hostage, and that the advantage is his. He then yells for Ajaha and his system's analysis advances to 34%. The giant wolf tries to bite him, but the MC holds its jaws with his bare hands. With a cruel smile, Charles says his wolf's bite can crush any defense defense below 300 and that the boy will lose his arm, but to Charles's surprise Itsuki not only resists but the wolf also can't close its mouth. The MC then uses his piercing orb and launches it directly into the creature's mouth. The attack hits its mark and the wolf's head explodes into pieces with devastating power. With the Shikigami defeated, Itsuki turns to Charles and says that without his familiar he's defenseless. Charles wonders if he doesn't know he's a rookie and that Shikigami can respawn. He explains that his wolf, Death, has a B rank ability that drastically reduces its respawn time. The wolf regenerates and charges again, but Itsuki remains calm and confident. With a mental command, he activates his mana sense ability, and waves of energy spread out. He easily dodges the attack, and his system's analysis advances to 91%. The MC thinks the analysis is almost complete and worries that the blue lotus flower might raise suspicion. Charles realizes the boy has more power, speed, and a detection ability, and that he can't attack him by surprise. Desperate, he threatens the assistant, saying that if he resists anymore, she's a goner. Itsuki wants to complete the analysis without the lotus flower, but the situation forces him to act. The system then confirms that the analysis of the Death Hound is complete and he acquires the Shikigami Devour ability. The screen shows his stats increased by 20, but the recovery failed due to the incomplete activation of hypermimesis. He realizes the recovery effect is gone, but since he was already healed, he can fight at full strength. With the wolf advancing, he understands the new ability allows him to steal other people's Shikigami. Enveloped in an aura of energy, he prepares to put his new power into practice. With a powerful punch, he says he's going to take his dog and attacks the wolf with all his might. The MC then delivers a spinning kick that sends the creature flying through the air with a violent impact. Upon touching the wolf, he activates his ability, and the creature begins to disintegrate into particles of light. Charles screams at the wolf, calling it useless, and wonders why he fed it so much experience. The man in the hat then threatens to break Age's neck if he resists any further. The woman tells him not to worry about her, and that he should keep fighting. With his hands up, he surrenders and asks Charles not to hurt her. The man in the hat says if he had been obedient from the start, she wouldn't have suffered. Itsuki asks why he's attacking him, and that he doesn't remember having any beef with him. Charles introduces himself as the hound sent by Reiji Kinoshita to capture him for entering the stages without permission. The MC hears Reiji Kinoshita's name and says he needs to find him to have a chat. Charles warns him not to use his ice armor if he values the girl's life, and says the wolf will rip his legs off. Charles orders the wolf to rip his legs off, but something unexpected happens. With a mental command, Itsuki tells the wolf to prove its worthy of being his Shikigami. The wolf then turns and attacks Charles, its former master, leaving the man shocked. In the blink of an eye, Itsuki saves the assistant and holds her in his arms. Charles screams in pain and desperately asks why the wolf is attacking its own master. Itsuki then praises the wolf for its obedience and calls it a good boy. Holding the assistant, he says he'll repay her pain 100 times over and that Charles will regret ever touching them. Desperate, the man in the hat begs for his life and offers to lure Reiji into a trap. With his eyes glowing red, Itsuki accepts the proposal with a sinister smile. Charles realizes he's completely vulnerable and tries a surprise attack. With a cry of fury, he launches an ice stake toward the MC. He screams for the boy to perish, but the attack is easily blocked by the giant wolf. Itsuki says taking out Reiji is a job for him alone and orders the wolf to make Charles feel the same pain Aja felt. Charles begs for another chance, but the wolf charges forward mercilessly for mealtime. With a menacing look, the creature prepares to devour its former master without hesitation. With tears in his eyes, Charles pleads with the wolf, reminding it that he was its master and fed it, but the creature doesn't hesitate and devours him without showing any mercy or remorse. With the assistant in his arms, Itsuki says someone has been watching them since he left the stage. With a serious look, he asks how long the person plans to hide and why they don't show themselves. Suddenly, a mysterious figure emerges from the wheat field with slow, confident steps. The hooded man says he's been caught and reveals himself to Itsuki. Itsuki asks if he's a friend of Charles, and the hooded man becomes alert. Frightened, he denies it and says he's not an enemy, and asks the MC to listen to him. Itsuki says he doesn't have time for this, and orders the wolf to follow him after it's done eating. The hooded man watches the wolf obey and thinks that maybe this boy can help him. He introduces himself as Iberia and asks for our protagonist's name, who identifies himself as Itsuki Tenma. Iberia asks for help and offers creation stones as payment, but the MC asks about weapons. He's surprised by the answer and wonders if his old man lied to him about rewards. In a forge, a blacksmith explains that rewards need to be relevant, like water in a desert. He concludes that a blade for the Avenger and medicine for the injured is what constitutes a real reward. With a snap of his fingers, Iberia finally understands the situation. He warns him that if he takes his time walking, the girl will perish, as the nearest hospital is miles away. With a smile, Iberia reveals he has a healing item with him. He then shouts that he can save her, but Itsuki keeps walking. Itsuki turns in surprise and asks if he's telling the truth. Iberia confirms she won't heal instantly, but the item will save save her life. They place the assistant on the ground, and Iberia bandages her up, explaining it's a rare artifact made from the bandages of the Shadow clan. Itsuki asks what an artifact is, and Iberia says it's no surprise he doesn't know, being a rookie. He explains that modern weapons are useless against the beasts, and that artisans create special equipment called artifacts. Iberia continues, saying that artifacts are classified into 4 tiers: common, rare, epic, and unique. He reveals that common artifacts are basic weapons that can harm beasts and awaken. Rare artifacts increase some of the user's stats, and epic ones have special effects. Finally, he explains that the pinnacle is unique artifacts, with massive stat boosts and powerful abilities. Iberia says that artisans aren't strong fighters, but they are rare and respected by all. Itsuki concludes that his father is an artisan, and Iberia reveals he's not just any artisan, as there are only 10 unique artifact artisans. With pride, Iberia reveals that his old man made 3 of them, and that's why he's called the Artisan King of the North. The image of a muscular, bearded blacksmith appears as Iberia boasts about his father, but Itsuki completely ignores him, and Iberia yells, asking if he heard him. The MC continues to ignore him and picks up the crossbow Charles was using. Iberia says it's a rare artifact, and Itsuki laments the lack of ammo, but the blonde boy explains that the weapon generates its own ammunition. He's intrigued by the boy's indifference and thinks anyone else would be sucking up to him because of his father. Itsuki then puts away the crossbow, and it disappears into particles of light, and Iberia explains that artifacts can be stored in a subspace. With a smile, Itsuki thanks him for the healing and says he's going to find Reiji Kinoshita. Iberia is surprised by his courage, and the MC asks if he's going to try to stop him too, but Iberia reveals they have the same target, and Itsuki asks if he ticked him off too. Iberia invites him to team up for the tournament qualifiers, and the MC remembers Agia had mentioned it. He explains that as the chief's son, Reiji Kinoshita is obviously aiming for the main event and would disgrace his family if he didn't rank in the top 10. Itsuki asks what the qualifiers have to do with Reiji, and Iberia explains that the North Continent headquarters is in North District 4. That's why Reiji is monopolizing all the stages to level up, and Itsuki asks why he wants to team up with him. Iberia says it's because he's strong and his instincts tell him they'll pass if they team up, and Itsuki questions his hurry. Iberia explains that since he was a child, he watched his father create artifacts. Each finished piece was a work of art, and his respect for him only grew. He always dreamed of becoming an awakened and fighting the beasts with his father's creations. A month ago, he finally awakened and asked his father for an artifact, but he said it was too soon. He didn't give up and begged until his father gave him one condition: pass the qualifiers. With determination, he declares that he needs to pass the qualifiers no matter what. Itsuki says that with a father like that, he must have people lining up to team up with him. Iberia reveals that his father forbade him from using his name to get help and that he should pass on his own merit. He explains that most of the strong participants have already been bought by Kinoshita and that he had no one to team up with, but 2 days ago, he heard about someone who defeated one of the 4 pillars and broke a record, and he tracked the boy down. Itsuki accepts the partnership but says he first needs to take the assistant to a hospital, and Iberia says he'll go with him. He starts suggesting team names, and Itsuki thinks about how he talks more than his friend. Iberia then suggests the name Double I, since they both have the letter I in their names. Elsewhere, Itsuki's friend is training intensely. The pink-haired girl watches him and asks if he has a cold, but he says maybe Itsuki is talking about him. Seiya wonders how long it's been since she's seen him and if he's okay. His friend teases her, saying that if she's so worried, she should have visited him. Embarrassed, the girl attacks him with her water ability, and he's surprised by the attack. He complains about the low blow, but she says it's his fault for leaving an opening. An older man arrives and scolds them, telling them to stop messing around because the qualifiers start the next day. The status screen reveals that Seiya was level 7 and Itsuki's friend is level 10. Elsewhere, someone opens a briefcase with creation stones. Reiji Kinoshita asks where the hound is and wonders if something unexpected happened. With his eyes glowing with rage, he crushes one of the stones and gains experience points. He decides to forget about the hound and focus on the qualifiers, fearing he'll be punished if he fails. His subordinate informs him that out of 3,113 participants, they have secured the cooperation of 880, 7 level 5 or higher. Reiji praises him, saying he's the only reliable person he has. He then uses the last creation stone and levels up. The status screen reveals Reiji is level 12 with a total of 603 points, and he prepares to crush the commoners. Meanwhile, Itsuki arrives at a mysterious place enveloped by a blue energy. He apologizes to the commander, saying what happened to Agia was his fault. The commander asks what they should do and offers to get rid of the guy, but Itsuki asks to leave him to him, and the man agrees. The commander tells him to give him the details later, and the MC leaves. Iberia realizes the commander is Tema's teacher and understands why he wasn't impressed by his father. Itsuki then tells the commander that he has decided to enter the qualifiers with Iberia. He asks how Agia is, and she replies that she's fully recovered thanks to her jade butterfly and Iberia's artifact. The commander recognizes the artifact and deduces that Iberia is Aiden's son. Iberia is surprised the man knows his father and the artifacts and decides to assert himself himself. With a thumbs up, he introduces himself as Aiden's father, leaving everyone confused. The commander corrects him, saying he's got it backward, and Iberia is embarrassed. With a red face, he apologizes and explains that Aiden is his father. The commander then thanks him for saving his daughter and says he'll visit him after the tournament. He dismisses them, saying they need to prepare and that he and Yahello will be watching tomorrow. Iberia agrees and assures them that they will definitely pass the qualifiers. Ajia realizes her father really likes Tenma because with Jen he always took her to the meetings. The commander explains that due to a childhood trauma, Tenma has a strong self-destructive impulse against the beasts. However, this impulse lessens when there's someone nearby he wants to protect. He reveals that's why he placed her by his side. With a determined look, Ajia understands she must become the person Tenma wants to protect. The commander then reveals that the attack on the school wasn't an accident, but a planned event. He says the number of traitors allying with the beasts is increasing and that humanity's future is bleak. But he believes Tenma will brighten that future. With conviction, he declares that the boy will become the ray of hope. The tournament qualifiers arena is packed with competitors. Iberia is surprised by the number of people, and someone explains the number jumped from 300 to almost 5,000 when they heard Izumi was present. Reiji is furious about the increased variables, but his subordinate calms him, saying they still have the numerical advantage. Itsuki's friends notice the red ribbons on the arms of Reiji's allies and wonder if it's a new trend. The tournament announcer Soryu Fujiwara explains the rules of the qualifiers. The venue is divided into outer and inner areas, and participants will start at different points. The first stage is a race to see who can reach the inner area fastest, and only the top 500 advance. Each participant's bracelet will record their ranking as soon as they enter the inner area. Itsuki's friends understand the bracelet's function and think the competition is brutal. The announcer says participants can carry up to 2 tools per person, and Iberia gets Itsuki's attention. He points to Reiji Kinoshita, who orders his allies to sabotage anyone who runs ahead of him. Iberia suggests entering the inner area as quickly as possible and attacking Kinoshita by surprise, but Itsuki ignores him and walks toward Reiji, leaving Iberia shocked. Reiji and his men stare him down, and one of them notices he doesn't have the red ribbon. The announcer then signals the start of the first stage, and everyone begins to run. Old man Fujiwara comments that it's comforting to see so many young people joining the alliance, but numbers mean nothing without quality. A man named Shohiten recalls that in their time, there were many participants above level 15, but the year he participated, there were only 2 competitors, Jin Taiwa, level 21, and himself, level 18. With a smile, he says he's bored without a rookie like Taiwa, and hopes someone interesting shows up. Shohiten then asks the commander about a student who became his pupil, and the man seems surprised. The commander then confirms the story is true, leaving Shohiten shocked by the news. Shohiten asks if the student is there, and the commander wonders where he is. He checks the participants on his tablet but dismisses Itsuki's friend for having a mediocre gift. He also dismisses Sayo for being a support elementalist. The announcer believes it must be Heina Hangyu, a wood elementalist with an abnormally high level. He's confused because she has the highest level, but the commander says she's not the chosen one. Shohiten asks if there are any level 0 participants, and the commander confirms there's always a curious one. Reiji and his men mock Itsuki for being level 0 and ask if he's lost. Itsuki then equips his hunter's crossbow and prepares for combat. Reiji recognizes him and asks who the heck he is. With a defiant look, Itsuki says he was looking for him. Reiji refuses to believe that a level 0 piece of trash defeated Oga, and believes he was sent to provoke him. He then orders his men to get him, and they promise to make him regret it. Itsuki unleashes a wave of electric energy and says he has no time to waste on small fry. Reiji's men charge to attack but are easily repelled by the MC's aura. With his allies defeated, Reiji is surrounded by Itsuki and Iberia. Shohiten underestimates the opponents and says if they beg now, he might spare them. Iberia realizes he can defeat one of them, but it's impossible for Tenma to face 4 at once. With a determined look, he prepares to use one of his artifacts. One of Reiji's men mocks Itsuki for being level 0. Itsuki then glares at him and, in a cold voice, tells him to get out of his way. The man is shocked by the boy's audacity and starts to laugh. He laughs hysterically and his companions join in the mockery. Shohiten likes the boy's personality and says he'll save him if he's about to perish. Reiji's man approaches and says he's going to crack his head open to see what's inside, but Itsuki is faster and hits him with a powerful punch to the face. With a single blow, he defeats him and says again to get out of his way. Shohiten is shocked to see him defeat an opponent 7 levels above him with a single blow. Reiji's other men panic, but one says not to worry, as he just caught him by surprise. One of the men uses his flamethrower ability to turn Itsuki to charcoal, but the MC is too fast, and Iberia despairs for not having time to use his artifact. The man says people perish all the time in the qualifiers, and that it's his fault for being level 0, but one of his companions notices something is wrong and warns him. To everyone's surprise, Itsuki emerges unscathed from the fire attack. Iberia is impressed to see that he completely blocked the fire explosion. With his ice armor intact, he tells Iberia to step back. The system screen confirms he blocked a B rank fire ability, and his defense increased by 10%. He notes his defense increased by 30, day 3 and decides to test his Ice Wall's passive. The man is shocked to see him unharmed and wonders how he can use ice abilities without being a water elementalist. Itsuki then challenges him to try the same move again and says he won't block it. The man gets angry and asks if he's mocking him, but the MC promises he won't defend himself. With a cry of fury, he launches his strongest attack to finish the boy off once and for all. Itsuki watches the wave of fire approach and realizes that despite the increased power, it's still a fire ability. The man says that with this power, he could rival a level 8. He feels his mana draining and thinks it's a waste to use his ultimate move on a level 0, but to his surprise, the attack has no effect and he can't believe what he's seeing. He understands that his Ice Wall's passive doesn't stack if it's the same ability from the same target. With the test concluded, he says it's time to end this and faces Riji's men. A muscular man prepares to attack and says he's already figured out the ice ability's weakness. He then launches a barrage of B-rank flames to overwhelm the boy's defense, but Itsuki activates his Ice Wall and blocks all the fireballs with ease. The attack is completely neutralized by Itsuki's ice defense. The man believes a level 0's man is limited and that he can win by draining his energy, but before he could react, Itsuki closes the distance in an instant. With the boy right in front of him, he realizes the incredible speed and the ice armor protecting him. The man tries to use his strength, but the MC easily holds him back. With his full armor, Itsuki asks if he's really putting any strength into it. He then hits him with a powerful kick and says he'll end his suffering. The system screen confirms his defense only increased by 3 points, and he understands the calculation is based on base defense. With 2 more lightning elementalists in his sights, he says he'll use them to increase his Thunder Wave's passive effect. With a menacing look, he asks if they really think they can escape him. The 2 men attack with their Silver Serpent ability, but the attack is easily absorbed. The system confirms the absorption of the abilities and the increase of his agility by 5% for each. Shoheitan is impressed to see him defeating higher level Wakened as if it were child's play. Itsuki realizes the Thunder Wave's passive works the same way as the Ice Wall. Iberia looks at the knocked out men and comments that they've all been defeated. With a smile, he says he thought it would be a tough fight but didn't imagine Itsuki was so strong. Raiji's last man asks what kind of ability he's using and says he's definitely not level 0. Iberia approaches and asks who we are, and Itsuki is confused by the question. With a confident smile, Iberia declares they are the strongest duo in the north, the Double I. But Itsuki cuts him off and tells them to go after Kinoshita. The man is confused by the name Double I and thinks it's pathetic. Meanwhile, Riji hears the commotion and believes the level 0 must have been defeated by now, but he realizes the crossbow the MC was using belonged to Charles and decides to investigate. Elsewhere, a man boasts about his speed and overtakes another competitor. Riji then sees him pass and wonders about Charles's disappearance. Suddenly, one of the fastest competitors is hit by a powerful purple energy discharge and screams in pain. Lying on the ground, the man wonders who the heck hit him while he was running at top speed. Then, a foot steps on his back forcefully and the same purple energy crackles around it. It was Riji Kinoshita, who looks down on him with contempt and says that's what he gets for running ahead of him. He then turns to his men and tells them to pull themselves together so they don't waste energy on trash before the second stage. A blue-haired woman watches the scene and recognizes the son of the North District Chief, commenting on his arrogance. With his eyes glowing, Riji thinks that thanks to his men clearing the way, he's at full energy. At that moment, a crowd of competitors approaches the gigantic structure that is the entrance to the inner area. Already in front of the gate, the hare thinks it was surprisingly easy to get here, but suddenly a bolt of lightning strikes from the sky, and a voice shouts Kinoshita's name, making his eyes widen in surprise. The hare turns around, his face twisted with shock and anger, unable to believe what he's hearing. He yells asking who dares to call him that, and his men deny it while one points out it's the level 0 rookie. As they look back, they see the silhouettes of Itsuki and Iberia walking calmly toward them. One of the henchmen confirms with astonishment that it really is the 2 of them approaching through the rain. Riji can't believe his men were defeated and thinks there were too many for a level 0 and a level 7 alone. He then concludes that his men were bribed and, with a furious look, asks how far the level 0 trash will follow him. With that, Itsuki says the hare isn't going anywhere until they settle their differences, and Iberia thinks about how he's been relying on his partner's strength. The hare turns his back, saying he's busy and doesn't have time for them, but he'll leave someone to keep them company. With his eye glowing red with rage, Reiji Kinoshita orders his men to get Itsuki. Then, several of Reiji's followers surround them and threaten them for disrespecting their master, and one says he'll show them a world of hurt. Iberia gets worried seeing there are at least 100 enemies and asks his partner what they should do. Enveloped in electricity, Itsuki tells Iberia to cover his ears, leaving the blonde boy confused by the order. At that moment, the electric energy expands and surrounds the entire group of Reiji's followers, who prepare to attack. The hero of the Kinoshita family watches the scene from the side, seemingly unconcerned by the display of power. Suddenly, a blue energy explosion sends all the followers flying with overwhelming force. While Reiji remains with a serious expression, Iberia is shocked by his partner's devastating power. Standing over the defeated, Itsuki tells Reiji it seems his last words weren't clear and that he'll repeat them. With a determined look, he declares he's not letting the hair go anywhere until they settle the score. Elsewhere, a pink-haired girl arrives in 4th place and complains about the guys with red ribbons who tried to block them. Her companion, who arrived in 5th place, regrets that they could have been faster if they had split up and is surprised by the others' speed. A muscular man complains about getting 3rd place, while the 2nd place finisher, a white-haired girl, teases him. She then points to the 1st place finisher, Hana Hangyu, and comments that the girl is already at level 16. The pink-haired girl worries about Itsuki being alone, but her friend points out someone is coming from the air. Sayo then looks up with a surprised expression as she sees the figure approaching. At that moment, Iberia lands hard on the ground, and the system screen reveals he placed 6th. Lying on the ground, the blonde boy screams Itsuki's name, desperate for help in the situation. Sayo and her colleague are surprised to hear the name and confirm that's what the boy said. She then recognizes Itsuki's back and realizes he's the one facing the crowd. With a determined look, Itsuki faces Reiji and repeats that he's not letting him go anywhere. The tournament announcer observes the scene and wonders why that rookie is so obsessed with the Kinoshita hair. The commander then asks Sho Haiten to help the boy if he gets into any trouble. Sho Haiten is impressed by Itsuki's speed and wonders if he could have moved like that in his prime. Reiji glares at Itsuki with anger and says he keeps getting in his way, and that he should prepare himself. With their eyes glowing red, Reiji's followers surround him, and he says this will be 100-to-1 massacre. They then draw their weapons, and the hair declares this isn't a battle, but Itsuki's execution. Itsuki thinks that passing the qualifiers is secondary, as his priority is to avenge Ajaha. With a cry of fury, Reiji points at the MC and orders everyone to eliminate him. The crowd charges with their abilities, but Itsuki remains still and watches them calmly. One of the men with a flaming arm approaches and says his head is his, using the fire punch ability. But Itsuki catches the attack with his hand without showing any effort, leaving the man shocked. In a swift move, he twists the man's arm and throws him aside with immense force. The man is thrown violently to the ground, and Itsuki continues to face the crowd. The others are shocked by the instant defeat, and one of them says not to panic, as they have the numerical advantage. With a dark look, Itsuki challenges them, saying they can bring it on, and the system confirms the increase in his defense. With his eyes glowing red and enveloped in flames, he declares it's time to end this charade and activates Lotus Burst. The powerful flower-shaped energy expands and hits the entire crowd with devastating force. Iberia and Itsuki's friends watch in shock as the ability decimates the horde of enemies. The 1st place finisher Hana Hangyu also watches the scene from a distance with a serious expression on her face. The 3rd place finisher is surprised by the explosion, and the white-haired girl says an attack of that level is just a snack for her cat. The tournament announcer is shocked by the power of the explosion and wonders how a level 0 can use abilities outside his class. Ajihai and Sho Haiten watch in shock, and the woman understands the boy learned an area of effectability, explaining his earlier confidence. Itsuki thinks about how many trump cards he still has hidden and decides to use only 30% of his power to avoid eliminating the opponents. Reiji watches in shock as the battlefield is littered with all his defeated followers, with Itsuki standing in the middle of the destruction. With his eyes glowing with fury, Itsuki glares at the hair and says now it's just him. The hair panics and can't believe that over 100 people were defeated instantly and asks why the MC is so obsessed with him. Itsuki corrects him, saying he was the one who attacked first and hurt his friend, and that today he'll return all the pain she felt. With that, Reiji becomes enraged and says he is the heir of the Kinoshita family and levels up easily with the karma stones his family gives him. He then screams that they are on different levels and prepares his Violet Thunder Cannon to eliminate Itsuki once and for all. Itsuki's system detects the B rank ability and activates Mimesis to analyze the attack as the analysis progresses, but he dodges the attack with incredible speed and appears behind Reiji, grabbing his head. The hair can't believe he dodged it and, with that speed, wonders if he's really level 0 and realizes he can't win. Desperate, he cries for help and calls for someone named 40 to save him from the situation. A muscular man charges forward at high speed and thinks it's against the rules, but he can't worry about appearances now. Reiji then smiles wickedly and reveals that 40 is a level 35 awakened and tells the MC to get torn to shreds. The commander watches the scene and calls for Haiten, who promptly responds to his call, seeming ready to intervene. Itsuki feels someone approaching at high speed and realizes his mana sense ability is reacting. He then realizes it's not just one person, and the man named 40 charges forward with impressive speed. The man lands with a violent impact right in front of Itsuki, who watches him calmly. Itsuki then faces announces the new opponent, and Shu Haiten appears behind the muscular man. He then easily defeats the man and holds him by the face, telling him to keep going. With his eyes glowing purple, Itsuki turns to Riji and says it looks like his lifeline has been cut. Desperate, the hare begs for his life and says his father is the district administrator and his brother is in the Savior's Alliance. But Itsuki doesn't listen, and Riji screams in pain as Itsuki walks away from the fallen body. With a cold look, the MC says that was for Ageha. The commander's assistant watches the scene with a flushed face and an expression of admiration for the boy. The announcer can't believe he defeated Reiji Kinoshita and wonders why the assistant is looking at him that way. Itsuki's system shows the analysis is at 99%, and he decides to pause it so he can reset his energy in the second stage. Suddenly, Sayo appears and screams Itsuki's name upon seeing him standing near Reiji's body. Itsuki turns in surprise, recognizing his classmate's voice. He then turns and sees Sayo standing there, calling him with a look of shock and concern on her face. With a gentle smile, the pink-haired girl tells them to get inside quickly. She then warns him that if he stays in the rain, he'll catch a cold. Itsuki says it's been a while, and the system confirms he reached the inner area in 7th place. Suddenly, Iberia and his friend with glasses hug him in relief and shout that they missed him. Itsuki's colleague then glares at Iberia with jealousy and asks why he's clinging to his friend. With a confident smile, the blonde boy introduces himself as Itsuki's partner, Iberia. His friend gets furious and calls him a traitor, and Sayo comments that it's rare for Itsuki to make friends. Iberia asks if they were a duo, and Itsuki's colleague says he wouldn't think of something so childish. With a mocking smile, Itsuki's friend says of course not, and Iberia challenges him to say it. Itsuki tells him to stop fighting, but Iberia proudly reveals their duo's name is Double I. Itsuki's friend starts laughing at the name, finding it ridiculous, and Iberia gets annoyed, saying it's a great name. The tournament announcer then announces that 500 participants have reached the inner area and that the others are eliminated. He then reveals that the second stage will begin and that they will fight alone against disaster beasts for 1 hour. Iberia is shocked by the news that the fight will be individual, while Itsuki's friend remains calm. Shohaiten is excited about the second stage and says it's finally time to see what the rookies are made of. A screen shows the top qualifiers from the first stage, including our acquaintances and some new powerful faces. All participants gather in a gigantic metal arena that will be the stage for the second part of the tournament. Itsuki's group walks toward the entrance, and one of them comments that the second stage location is here. Inside, Iberia comments that the place is gloomy, and the friend with glasses asks if Itsuki's level is really fixed at 0, and he confirms. The colleague then questions how he gets stronger without leveling up, but the MC remembers the teacher told him not to tell anyone. Sayo then intervenes and tells her friend not to bother him, as his class's abilities are a national secret. From above, the organizers watch the competitors, and the tournament announcer asks if everyone is ready. Iberia and the friend with glasses look up, shocked by the figures watching the arena. The other participants recognize announcer Fujiwara Soryu, veteran Shu Haiten, and the legendary commander Mendo Izumi. The announcer then begins to explain the rules of the second stage, saying that various beasts will appear with varying points. A screen shows the point system, ranging from 100 for beginner to 5,000 for nightmare difficulty. He continues, explaining that after each victory, there will be a 1-minute break before advancing to the next difficulty. The third place finisher, Gakawo, confidently declares he's going straight for nightmare difficulty, and his status screen is shown. At that moment, Itsuki raises his hand and says he'd like to ask the announcer a question. The other competitors mock him for being level 0 and think he's scared and wants to back out of the individual fight. The tournament announcer tells him to ask whatever he wants. Itsuki then asks if nightmare difficulty is the highest level there is. Shuhaiten smiles mockingly upon hearing the question, and the announcer is surprised. The other competitors mock him, saying he has no chance against a nightmare, and that they doubt he'll even pass the beginner level. The announcer then explains that theoretically, there is no upper limit to the difficulty of disaster beasts. Itsuki's friend says it's pointless to think about it, as nightmare difficulty is already level 10 or higher. The announcer reveals that the points earned here can be carried over to the main tournament, which influences entry into the alliance. Itsuki's friends get excited by the news, and Iberia thinks he has no choice but to use that. Itsuki remembers Taiwajin's record of 115,000 points and decides to use this opportunity to surpass it. The announcer then orders everyone to enter the arena, and the rain continues to fall. With that, the second stage of the qualifiers begins, and Itsuki observes the arena. Immediately, 10 rabid dogs appear in front of him, and he thinks he can finally fight against the disaster beasts. He then activates his ice wall and says that since they won't increase his stats, he'll end this quickly. The announcer complains to Shohaiten that he's monitoring the boy again instead of the first place finisher. With a confident smile, Shohaiten replies that Itsuki is much more interesting to watch. Shohaiten gets excited and says here he comes, and the announcer questions if it's necessary to be surprised every every time. Itsuki defeats all the dogs in a second, and the system confirms he has acquired 100 points. The announcer is shocked as it would normally take minutes, and Shu Heighten says he told him the boy was more interesting. Old man Fujiwara comments that since they were level 1, it was easy, but the next opponent, level 8, will be impossible to defeat like that. In the arena, a giant level 8 salamander appears, and the screen shows it's worth 500 points. Fujiwara says he'll have trouble against a beast 8 levels above him, but the commander doubts it's a threat to him. The commander asks about the others, and the announcer switches to multi-screen while Agia thinks her father wants to divert attention. The announcer observes the tablet and comments that most participants are still in the first difficulty class. In another arena, Seo and Itsuki's friend fight their own beasts with their water and hammer abilities. An observer comments that the only one keeping pace with Itsuki Tenma is the first place finisher, Hana Haniyu. Suddenly, Agia screams in desperation and says something bad has happened to the boy. She points to the screen in panic upon seeing Itsuki completely engulfed in the salamander's flames. Fujiwara suggests calling the medical team, but Shu Heighten stops him and says to wait, as with his speed, it would be easy to dodge. Enveloped in flames, Itsuki activates his black ice wall to protect himself from the attack. With his ice armor complete, he charges at the salamander and prepares a powerful slash with his blade. With a precise move, the ice blade easily cuts through the creature's scales. Itsuki then defeats the salamander, and the system confirms the victory in 5 seconds and 500 points. The announcer is shocked to see him unharmed, and Shu Heighten wonders why he took the attack on purpose. The system shows his defense increased by 10%, and he thinks he needs to use every opportunity to get stronger. His status screen reveals his defense is now 434, with a total of 1,395 points. With 58 seconds of break time remaining, he decides to skip the rest to test his defense on the next beast. The announcer comments that this difficulty tests the participant's speed and combat sense, and Shu Heighten agrees. A level 10 electric rhinoceros appears, and the screen warns that its attack channels electricity and physical force. A simulation shows that anyone hit by the horn will have their body pierced if they don't have enough defense. Another simulation shows that a lack of resistance to lightning can cause paralysis and immobility in the target. The announcer explains that to defeat the rhinoceros, one must use speed to tire it out and attack at the right moment. Suddenly, old man Fujiwara panics and wonders what Itsuki is planning to do. In the arena, Itsuki calmly approaches the creature and touches its electric horn. With a determined look, he thinks that horn is perfect for testing his defense. Annoyed by the boy's audacity, the electric rhinoceros starts snorting and charging its power. The creature then attacks him with its electric horn, launching Itsuki into the air. With the impact of the blow, Itsuki's body is thrown backward with overwhelming force. The commander's assistant screams Itsuki Tenma's name in desperation as she watches the scene unfold. Shu Heighten comments that the boy continues to take unpredictable actions in every fight, but he adds that every time, he shows results that exceed everyone's imagination. The system confirms a 5% increase in agility, and he thinks that beasts below level 10 won't hurt him anymore. With his eyes glowing red, he faces the creature and says it's time to settle this once and for all. Itsuki then activates Thunder Wave, and the system confirms a 50% increase in his agility. The electric rhinoceros snorts in anger and prepares to attack Itsuki again. With his increased speed, he charges in the blink of an eye toward the energy creature. He then uses his ice blade to defeat the beast, and the system confirms 1,000 points in 7 seconds. Shu Heighten comments that in less than 15 seconds, he feels the boy hasn't even shown his full power. The commander then says that, however, the next opponent will be much more dangerous. The screen shows a creature with sharp claws that tear enemies apart in the blink of an eye, and with a giant mouth that spits iron chains and swallows everything in its path. A gigantic body covered by a tough exoskeleton makes it a fearsome opponent. The announcer says that with all these qualities, it is the most powerful and ferocious beast of the qualifiers. The level 15 predatory giant appears in the arena, worth 5,000 points, and Itsuki readies his orb. With a swift motion, he activates the truth-piercing orb and launches it at the creature. The attack hits the monster head on, and the system confirms the victory, and a 200% increase in the orb's speed. In the control room, the announcer and Shu Heighten are shocked by Itsuki's instant victory. The system screen shows the orb now has a speed of 9 meters per second, and an increase of 900%. On the monitors, the organizers see that Itsuki defeated the beast in just 3 seconds. In another arena, a giant dog attacks one of the competitors with a water beam. The pink-haired girl Sayo uses her water bullet ability and thinks about defeating 2 more to advance in class. Elsewhere, Gaku Wu, the third-place finisher, arrogantly declares he has to be the first to reach the normal class. The first-place finisher Hana Hanyu decides to recover her mana before advancing to the next difficulty, and the screen shows she has already completed 100% of the normal class. A monitor confirms that the Nightmare class was completed in 21 seconds by the first-place finisher. Sayo shouts that it must be Tenma, while Gaku and Hana wonder who was faster than them. With his black energy orb, Itsuki says it's time to move on. The announcer is shocked and wonders how he defeated a level 15 giant with with one blow and what that black orb is. With an excited smile, Shohiten suggests increasing the difficulty to see how far the boy can go. In the arena, 2 level 15 giants appear, but Itsuki says he was expecting something special, and they just increased the quantity. The 2 gigantic creatures then charge at high speed toward Itsuki. With his purple energy in hand, he thinks he might as well defeat one of them while they're screaming. He then launches his orb, and the system confirms the giant's defeat, and the speed increased to 11 meters per second. The announcer is shocked by another fatal blow and wonders if that orb has any power limit, but Shohiten explains that the ability is powerful but has a fatal flaw, and the announcer asks what it is. At that moment, the remaining giant charges at Itsuki with impressive speed. Itsuki is surprised by the speed and thinks it's faster than any beast he's ever encountered. The commander explains that giants are mistaken for slow creatures because of their size, and the announcer asks what he means. In the arena, Itsuki concentrates his purple energy and prepares for the next attack. Shohiten explains that they have no mana, but in return, their other stats are enhanced, and despite their size, they are speed types. He then launches his orb, but the creature dodges the attack with a quick movement of its head. The status screen reveals the giant has 300 agility and a gift that increases its stats in exchange for not using mana. Itsuki is shocked to see the giant dodge his attack so easily. The commander explains the orb deals a lot of damage but isn't fast, and the boy used the giant's habit of screaming for a surprise attack. If he doesn't increase the orb's speed, he won't be able to advance much further, and the creature attacks him with a powerful punch. He barely dodges, and the impact of the blow creates shockwaves that destroy the arena floor. The giant's punch destroys a large area of the floor with immense and overwhelming force. Itsuki thinks that at mid-range the attack can be easily dodged. Shohiten deduces that if he knows it won't hit but uses it anyway, it's because he has no more tricks up his sleeve. With a confident smile, the MC praises the giant's speed and says in that case, he'll close the distance between them. He then activates Thunder Wave and prepares to attack the creature at high speed. With his electric energy, he dodges a blow, and the creature attacks him with high-speed punches. The arena floor cracks from the force of the punches, and Itsuki manages to dodge all the attacks. Agia watches the scene worriedly, her hand over her mouth, afraid of what might happen. The announcer says that attack is nothing like the rhinoceroses and that even the MC won't come out unscathed if he's hit. Old man Fujiwara panics and prepares to call the rescue team, but someone stops him. Shohiten interrupts him and says the attack power is immense, but he should watch a little longer. Shohiten says it's no use if the attack doesn't hit, and the giant stops attacking. The creature then punches the ground in fury and prepares for a new attack against the boy. Itsuki taunts it, drawing the creature's attention for an aerial attack. The giant turns in surprise upon hearing the boy's voice and tries to locate him in the air. Itsuki then launches his piercing orb, and the attack goes through the giant's skull. With his eyes glowing red and a bruised face, he watches the creature's body fall. The attack pierces through the giant's armor and defeats it with a single precise and devastating blow. The system confirms the victory and the increase of the orb's speed to 13 meters per second and 1,300%. With 12 seconds total time and 10,000 points, Itsuki observes the creature's body. Agia shouts Itsuki Tema's name, relieved and happy with the boy's victory in the arena. The commander observes his daughter's reaction and comments that it's rare to see her so excited. Embarrassed, the woman says she was just praying for everyone's safety and wasn't rooting for him. The commander then comments that she's become quite talkative since they last saw each other. The announcer asks Shohiten why he thought the boy was dodging the attacks. Shohiten explains that his normal speed isn't much different from the giant's, which is why he needed a plan. He adds that when the electricity starts coursing through his body, his speed increases dramatically, and once that happens, there's no way a purgatory giant's attack can hit him. The announcer comments that he managed to defeat 2 of them, but it was close, and if he were in his shoes he would have stopped by now. Itsuki thinks that if he wants to surpass the strongest man, the legendary Jin Taiwa, then he can't stop for a second and prepares for the next challenge with his purple energy. The screen shows the third phase will have 3 level 15 giants, and Itsuki prepares for battle. He then launches his orb and declares the first one is already gone with a devastating attack. Shohiten is pleased and says expected. He chose to continue and that he's the man he chose. The announcer recalls that Shohiten made it to phase 4 at once, and he says he just went there. Old man Fujiwara says that even with his physique, phase 3 is the limit and wonders how Itsuki will fare. Meanwhile, one of the giants charges to attack Itsuki with a powerful punch. He barely dodges, and the impact of the blow creates a shockwave that destroys the arena floor. With his Thunder Wave, he increases his agility to get behind the giant and close the distance between them. He then launches his orb, and the system confirms the defeat of the second giant and the speed increased to 17 meters per second. With the fight almost over, he looks up and thinks about how he'll deal with the last giant. Suddenly, the creature bites down on him, and Itsuki finds himself surrounded by the giant's sharp teeth. With its eyes glowing red, the giant prepares to devour him once and for all. Itsuki then lets himself be swallowed and prepares for a surprise attack. With his eyes glowing red, he activates activates Lotus Burst and says he's going to tear it apart from the inside out. The flower-shaped energy explodes inside the creature, and the giant is decimated from the inside out. The red energy explosion obliterates the giant, and the system confirms the victory in a 1% increase in the range of his abilities. With 13 seconds total time and 15,000 points, Itsuki observes the giant's remains. The tournament announcer is shocked by the explosion and wonders what that was. The screen shows that was the ability that eliminated several participants in the first stage. Tired and panting, Itsuki realizes his mana is completely depleted, and the screen confirms 0 out of 310. But he knows that as long as the beasts keep appearing, the passive effect of Mana Sense will refill his tank. Suddenly, 4 level 15 giants appear, and the system shows his mana has recovered to 120, 4 out of 310. Shu Heighten comments that Phase 4 has begun and that if he passes, he'll surpass his younger self, and the announcer agrees. With an excited smile, Shu Heighten says he can't wait to see how far the boy can go. Itsuki understands that each time his orb speed increases, its accuracy also improves. At this rate, if he increases the speed a few more times, he'll be able to hit them without even getting close. But he knows his mana is limited, and that he can't waste a single shot of his orb. One of the giants then splits iron chains that bind Itsuki's arms and legs. With the MC immobilized, the giant prepares for a high-speed attack. With a surprised look, Itsuki wonders if those are chains. The giant hits him with a powerful punch, and Itsuki tries to block the attack with his arms. The impact of the blow slams him hard against the arena floor, and he curses the situation. He then realizes he can't move in that position, and that he's completely vulnerable. The giant attacks him with its sharp claws, and Itsuki tries to protect himself from the blow. With the creature's attack, Itsuki screams in pain from the impact of the blow. The force of the attack creates a gigantic crater in the arena floor, and the giant looks down on him from above. Injured and covered in blood, Itsuki struggles to his feet amidst the debris. The tournament announcer panics and yells for Sho Heighten to go help him quickly. Sho Heighten watches the scene in shock and wonders if this is really the end of the line for the boy. He remembers when he was defeated and thinks Itsuki's situation is the same as is in the past. Sho Heighten says he's going, but the commander stops him and tells him to wait a little longer. He then explains that the boy hasn't given up yet, and Sho Heighten watches the screen intently. The announcer and Aegis say he's in a desperate situation, and that if they don't save him, he's a goner, but the commander says he can feel that he still has a trump card up his sleeve. The announcer asks how he knows, and the commander points to Itsuki's eyes. He then says those are not the eyes of someone who has accepted their fate, but of someone who still has hope. With his eyes shining with determination, Itsuki activates hypermimesis and resumes the analysis. He remembers that during the fight with Rigi, he activated mimesis to analyze the Violet Thunder Cannon ability, but he stopped the analysis at 99% and intentionally cancelled the process. Now, the analysis reaches 100%, and he says it was all for a moment exactly like this. He then acquires the Violet Thunder Cannon ability, and the screen shows his Thunder Wave has leveled up. Aegis points to the blue lotus flower, and the announcer wonders what use it is in that state. The screen shows that Thunder Wave now absorbs B-rank lightning attacks and increases agility by 100%. Additionally, he gains 20 points in all stats, and his debuffs and wounds are completely healed. With his power restored, the blue lotus flower opens, and he prepares for the counterattack. He then declares the warm-up is over, and it's time to get serious. The announcer is shocked to see him recover in seconds, and wonders how many abilities he can learn. With his power restored, he defeats the 2 remaining giants with his piercing orb. With victory in the 4th phase, he declares that no matter how many giants come, he won't lose. He then launches his orb and defeats another giant with a precise and devastating attack. The system screen shows his orb now has a speed of 27 meters per second and an increase of 2,700%. In the 5th phase, he defeats the giants with ease and earns 25,000 points in 57 seconds. In the 6th phase, he continues to decimate the giants and earns 30,000 points in 1 minute and 34 seconds. In the control room, everyone watches the scene, shocked and speechless at the boy's power. The arena becomes a true inferno, and the announcer says he's losing track of who the real monster is here. Exhausted and panting, Itsuki wonders where the next phase is, and why the giants aren't appearing. The announcer says he never expected this and that the situation is unbelievable. He then presses a red button and prepares to make an announcement for Itsuki. With the microphone in hand, he says the fight is over, and there will be no more giants in the arena. He then reveals that Itsuki has eliminated all the giants they had in stock. The pile of defeated giants' bodies shows the extent of the massacre that took place in the arena. Itsuki asks if he defeated them all and remembers there was no difficulty limit. He thinks he lost count of how many he took down and wonders how many points he got from it. With the victory, he believes the gap between him and Jin Taewa shouldn't be that big and that he has achieved his goal of increasing his orb speed. The screen shows the orb now has a speed of 38 meters per second, which is faster than most cars. Enveloped in a blue aura and with his body injured, he prepares for what's next. With a fixed and determined gaze, he faces what's in front of him in the arena. Tired, he thinks he wishes more enemies would appear but that he forgot an important detail. Since he can't level up, the experience from the beasts he takes down turns into karma stones. Shu Heighten is surprised to see a blue karma stone and says it must be worth at least 10,000 experience points. He then realizes that if the boy enters a stage with a party, his partner could take all the experience for themselves. Itsuki holds the stone and thinks he's glad to be human because he doesn't even want to imagine if he were a beast. With the stone in hand, he says he's done what he came to do and it's time to leave. He then approaches the arena door and prepares to exit the challenge location. In the control room, the tournament announcer says Itsuki is leaving. The screen shows he passed the second stage with 106,600 points in 3 minutes and 55 seconds. The announcer praises him, saying he's pure potential and invites him to be his student with a proper instructor, but the MC refuses the offer, saying he already has a teacher and that someone with more resources would be more beneficial to him. Shoheitan interjects and tells him not to bother him, as he'll only distract him, and the announcer gets annoyed. He then thanks Shoheitan for taking care of Kinoshita's henchman and says he was just punishing the rule breakers. With a smile, he reveals that as Mendu Izumi's student, there's no reason not to help him, and the announcer is shocked. Itsuki thanks him, and the announcer asks if he's really Commander Izumi's student. Shoheitan confirms with a smile, and the commander and Eija approach the group. The announcer thinks he thought any regular rookie had appeared, but to think he was the commander's disciple. The commander praises him and asks if he's injured, and Eija says there's no way he isn't after challenging Phase 7. He says he has no injuries but that his stamina is a bit low, and he'll recover with a short rest. The announcer comments that it makes sense he went so far, being Izumi's student, and that his other student also eliminated all the beasts. Itsuki asks if Tai will also reach Phase 6, and the announcer explains that back then, Phase 4 was the maximum. Shoheitan tells him to just watch because for the other participants, the second stage has barely begun. One of the competitors defeats a rhinoceros and says he can't lift his arms anymore and that the nightmare class is impossible for him. Seo also defeats her beast with a water sphere and says she's running out of mana. Itsuki is surprised that his friend stopped at the hard class, and the announcer says they've already secured a spot in the top 10. He then asks why they haven't left yet, and the announcer explains it's only allowed in special circumstances and that he was an exception. Shoheitan says other participants have reached the nightmare class, and the announcer comments on some of them. Gakuo uses his rare artifact and manages to defeat a giant with a powerful blow from his hammer. A white-haired girl and her Shikigami face a giant, and she calls it by name. The Shikigami then transforms into a full, gigantic form, ready for battle. The creature becomes a giant werewolf and attacks the giant with its claws and fangs. The two monsters clash in a battle of brute force with powerful and devastating blows. Itsuki asks if Eiji's butterfly can also transform, but she denies it. He then realizes that Shikigami are quite strong, and that he's been neglecting the dog he stole from Charles. Tired, he thinks that since his friends have withdrawn, there's no more reason to stay there and decides to leave. But suddenly, he notices something and turns in surprise at what he's seeing in the arena. He then shouts Iberia's name and wonders about the armor he's wearing and if it was a gift from his father. With his new armor, Iberia reveals that this is the strongest epic artifact his old man made for him. The screen shows the armor increases attack and agility by 100 points, plus 20 more each minute for 15 minutes. He says the artifact has a will of its own and chooses its master, and that he went through heck to get it, but he knows that if he uses it for more than 15 minutes, he'll receive a penalty, and that he needs to finish the fight in that time. The screen shows his attack and agility have increased by 120 points, and he charges into combat. He deduces that the Nightmare class announcement was from Itsuki, and that he needs to do his best not to slow him down. He then says that together, they are the Double Eye, and charges to attack the giant with his new armor. Itsuki watches the fight and comments that Iberia is looking sharp. Suddenly, the announcer says the second stage of the qualifiers has come to an end. He then reveals that only the top 10 with the highest scores will advance to the main event. Gaku-u thinks that besides Hana Hanyu, there shouldn't be anyone with more points than him, and that the special reward is his. The announcer then says he will announce the top 10 qualifiers for the tournament. The screen shows Itsuki placed first with 106,600 points. The other participants are shocked by the score, and one says that with those points, he could get first place in the nationals. Gakuo is furious for placing third and wonders who this Itsuki Temagai is. Hana Hanyu, the second place finisher, says she would love to have a match with Itsuki. Sayo is surprised surprised by the difference between her and Itsuki and wonders if she's not cut out for a combat job. Ajiha announces that the provincial qualifiers are over and that Itsuki placed first in the country with a huge point difference. She thinks she can't see her father's face but can feel that he's happy with the result. Lying on the ground, Iberia celebrates the victory and says he knew his partner would get first place. He then says he also did well enough not to embarrass the double lie name. Itsuki praises him, saying it was a good job and that he was surprised by his performance. Iberia's eyes spin with happiness at being praised by his partner in the arena. The tournament announcer then announces that the qualifiers event has come to an end. Itsuki carries Iberia on his back and prepares for the main event of the tournament. Elsewhere, on the southern continent, an old man with a white beard calmly observes the landscape. A man complains about being called to watch the old man meditate, and another scolds him, saying he is the southern commander. The screen reveals the man is the commander of the southern continent, known as Bargain, a prophet. The man continues complaining and says if he can predict the future, he should say where the monoliths will fall. The other man explains that Bargain can only foresee a small fraction of the future, and that he stands alongside humanity's heavyweights. Suddenly, the old man opens his eyes and shouts that his prophecy has a 100% accuracy rate. He then declares that the north is in danger, and that a major beast attack will happen soon. With a panicked expression, he reveals that among them will be a beast that exceeds level 100. Elsewhere, Itsuki observes his status screen and sees his total has surpassed 1,500 points. The screen shows his total stats are now 1,502, with significant increases in agility and defense, and Awaken levels up and the screen shows he gained 50 stat points to allocate. With 1,500 points, he is at the level of a level 30 Awakened, with his agility and defense able to increase infinitely. The screen shows the 10% bonuses in agility and defense he gets from his abilities. He knows his mana recovers infinitely with Mana Sense, but he has no way to increase his attack power. Suddenly, someone calls him and says the food is ready, interrupting his thoughts. It was his friend and Sayo who call him to eat and say they made his favorite dishes. He decides to put the attack issue aside for now and thinks he might get an attack, boosting ability later. At the table, he comments it's been a while since he's had his friends cooking and that it's delicious. He then asks where Iberi is and if he's still sleeping after the battle in the arena. Agia explains she treated him earlier and that he's extremely exhausted, which is why he's still sleeping. Itsuki's friend is surprised that even Sayo couldn't beat the nightmare class and that he managed to. He asks what's wrong and Sayo says, scared, that there's something behind him. He turns around and is faced with a shadowy silhouette with glowing red eyes. The mysterious figure then approaches and says it wants food in a hungry voice. Suddenly, Iberia appears and starts devouring all the food on the table, leaving everyone shocked. Itsuki's friend scolds him for scaring him and for eating the food without asking. Iberia then finishes eating and faces the guy with glasses with a defiant look. Itsuki's friend asks if he wants to fight, but Iberia just smiles in satisfaction. With a smile on his face, Iberia says the food was delicious and that he's regained his energy. His friend takes pride in his cooking and says it's all thanks to him. The commander then interrupts them and asks if they also want to become saviors. With a serious look, he says there's one thing he wants to ask all of them. Itsuki's friend asks what he wants to know, and the commander questions him about what he fears most. He says his dream is to become a savior and travel the world eating delicious food. He then concludes that his greatest fear is growing old and no longer having the stamina or taste to enjoy life. Iberia praises his cooking and suggests he give up on being an Awakened and become a chef. The commander asks Sayo, and she reveals she was born into a family of doctors and grew up in a hospital. From a young age, she saw many people suffering from major and minor illnesses, and it traumatized her. Because of this, she developed a terrible fear of even a cold or a fever. The commander explains that an Awakened's life expectancy is double that of a normal person, and they rarely get sick. Iberia says his greatest fear was not passing the qualifiers, but now he no longer fears that. Itsuki remembers how his body was hijacked by negative emotions like helplessness, anger, and sadness. Iberia then asks Itsuki what his greatest fear is, and the MC is surprised by the question. Itsuki thinks that's the reason she ran away when he sneezed the other day, and that there was a reason for it. He then observes Sayo and remembers how she found him crying alone and comforted him. The pink-haired girl reveals she's afraid of not being able to fight alongside Itsuki. Iberia remembers how anxious he was to know how he would survive after his parents were gone. He then remembers the day he found Itsuki crying alone in a corner. With a smile, he asks Itsuki about his fears, and Sayo says she can't imagine the boy fearing anything. Itsuki remembers when he was a child and cried alone in a dark corner. Suddenly, Sayo and his friend appeared and invited him to look at the starry sky. He says the warmth he received from them pulled him out of that negative world of pain and loneliness. With a smile, he thinks he felt like he had gained comrades and that his family had grown. With a serene look, he thinks it's been a long time since he's felt this kind of relief and wishes the moment could last forever. After that, he met his master Ajiha and Iberia, and his life began to change for the better. He then reveals that more than anything, he was afraid of living alone and isolated from everyone. The commander says the reason he asked was to see if they would regret choosing this path. He then advises them to finish their meal and rest, as Seo and his friend must return to the North District the next day. Aji observes Itsuki's aura and thinks about how incredibly gentle and calm it is. Itsuki's friend asks Seo if she caught a cold and if she needs to go to the hospital. Itsuki asks Iberia since when he became so close to his friend. The commander tells him to go home, and that regret is something a savior should never commit. He then tells them to remember that a departure without regrets is the ultimate goal of every savior. With a tight hug, Iberia says he will never leave his side, not even for a step. Itsuki tries to break free and says that's not what he meant by his words. The next morning, Iberia says goodbye and asks his friend to cook for him again someday. Itsuki sees Agia running hastily towards him and wonders what happened. She runs at high speed, and he wonders why she's in such a hurry. Panting, she reaches the commander and says she received secret information from the southern continent. He asks what the content is, and she explains the clearance level is extremely high. The commander says it's okay to tell the two of them, and Iberia is surprised by the trust. She reveals that a new prophecy has been issued by the southern commander and that a massive attack will occur in 3 days. Itsuki asks if the prophecy is reliable, and Iberia says it's equivalent to a confirmed future. Agia suggests they leave the northern continent quickly, but the commander says the beasts must have a target. He concludes that if he stays there, he will serve as excellent bait to attract the creatures. Agia and Itsuki offer to stay and fight, but the commander refuses their help. He says he has already made up his mind, and that there is something else he wants Itsuki to do. He sends him with Iberia to guard his father, the most skilled artisan of the 5 continents. Itsuki wonders if his master is trying to keep him away from the battlefield. The commander then turns to Aja and says he has 3 requests for her. He tells her to announce the attack to the residents and have the awakened below level 50 evacuate the civilians. He then orders the awakened above level 50 to prepare to intercept the beasts at any moment. Agia says she has already made the preparations and that Shu Heitan should arrive soon. With a serious look, she faces her father and prepares for what's to come. She then asks why he sent Itsuki there if Aiden already has skilled guards. With a smile, she says that, as expected of her father, he sees through everything and everyone. The commander explains it was prophesied that beasts above level 100 will appear, and that if the boy participated, he would expose all his trump cards. He adds that there is another reason, and that from observing his battles, he seems to lack attack power. He then reveals that if the boy can obtain the artifact that increases attack power, a perfect and balanced awaken will be born. On the first day of the prophecy, at 8 in the evening, monoliths rain down on the districts of the northern continent. Itsuki and Iberia run at high speed, and the blonde boy says there are 100 kilometers left. Itsuki thinks an attack could happen at any moment and that they need to hurry. Suddenly, Iberia screams and points to something in the sky with a panicked expression. Itsuki turns and sees a flaming object falling at high speed. Iberia yells that it's a monolith and that it landed right in the city center and that the attack has begun. The monolith's fall causes a massive energy explosion that lights up the entire city. Itsuki worries about the recent announcement as civilians are still evacuating the city. If the disaster beasts appear now, the casualties will be catastrophic, and other awakened panic as they see the prophecy come true. Iberia notices the barrier is forming, and the boy thinks that if they abandon the civilians, many will perish, but helping them will interfere with their mission. Itsuki thinks Iberia must be exhausted but hasn't asked for a break because he's worried about his father, and that's why he would hate it if they wanted to help the civilians. But to his surprise, Iberia says to go help, as the beasts are level 20, and without a strong awakened, many could be lost. Itsuki is surprised by his partner's decision, and the blonde boy says plans have changed, and that first, they'll clear the city. Suddenly, a giant creature of stone and fire lands with a violent impact on the city ground. A level 21 flame golem appears and prepares to cause destruction in the area. The awakened face it, and one comments that with 3 level 15s and 1 level 16, they should be able to win. One of them then activates his C-rank rock shield and says not to break formation, as he will hold off the attacks. With the shield ready, he tells the others to look for an opening to counter-attack, but the golem attacks with a powerful punch that shatters the shield with overwhelming force. The man can't believe what's happening and says it's impossible as he's crushed by the monster's fist. The others despair as he had the highest defense and was defeated instantly, and they wonder what to do. One of them yells that fighting is useless and they need to run, but the golem attacks one of them while another yells for him to watch out. The man with the headband says with a smile that the other one is the one who needs to be careful, but suddenly he notices a dark figure behind him and is terrified by its presence. Desperate Desperate, he begs for his life and attacks with his B-rank water cannon. He wonders how the monster got behind him but calms down. As a water elementalist, he is the natural enemy of that beast. His companions watch the scene, and one asks if he really defeated it, and the other suggests finishing it off to be sure, but the water elementalist tells them to stay away, as he will finish the creature himself. To his surprise, the golem regenerates, and one of his companions yells to take it out quickly. The monster then unleashes a huge wave of fire, and one of them screams in despair that it's the end. But suddenly a wall of black spikes emerges and completely blocks the fire attack. With that, Iberia tells them to calm down and leave the creature to the duo. Itsuki tells Iberia to evacuate the civilians, and the system confirms his defense has increased by 10%. Iberia says they aren't saviors yet, but one day he'll be stronger than Gen Taiwa, and one of the men calls him a brat. Iberia asks if they're going to be saved by the brat, and the elementalist says he didn't ask for help and was going to finish the monster. One of the awakened then observes the boy's ice armor and wonders if that's an artifact. Itsuki remembers his master told him something before they left. The master explains that the black orb is powerful, but its flight speed is slow compared to stronger beasts. That's why he advises him to avoid using it and save it as a trump card for when it's really necessary.
Back in the fight, he thinks he can't use his orb in the middle of a crowd while civilians are impressed by his jeer. He then decides he will crush the creature with brute force and charges forward, enveloped in electricity. With a powerful kick, he hits the golem squarely, causing a major impact on the creature. The system confirms the activation of Thunder Wave, and he positions himself above the monster's head. With impressive speed, he dodges the golem's attack as it tries to grab him in mid-air. The fire creature seems confused and can't keep up with the boy's speed. In the blink of an eye, he appears behind the monster and delivers a powerful punch to the back of its neck. The blow is so devastating that the golem's head cracks and explodes into pieces. The civilians are shocked by the scene, and one says the awakened looks to be 18 and that the beast must have been injured. One of the awakened who faced the monster before is shocked and can't believe what he's seeing. He then wonders how a level 21 golem couldn't even touch him and questions who that young man is. With the creature defeated, the MC turns and realizes the boy has vanished and wonders where he went. He then says that as soon as the boy won, he fled with the blonde boy, and that he only managed it because they had weakened the golem beforehand, and he adds that with that power, the boy could rival a level 30 awakened. Itsuki thinks he needs to increase his attack power somehow for the upcoming battles. The status screen shows his agility and defense receive large bonuses from his abilities, and that he recovers mana by detecting enemies. Iberia praises his partner speed, but the MC says speed means nothing without power. Panting, the blonde boy is surprised, as he had never thought of it that way before. He then says that if the MC wants to increase his attack power, there is a good way to do it. With a confident smile, he reveals that his father's workshop is full of artifacts, and that there's definitely one that increases attack. He then imagines his partner in incredible and powerful armor and starts drooling at the idea. Itsuki finds his laugh creepy and realizes that even holding back, the blonde boy could barely keep up with him. Suddenly, he grabs him from behind and tells him not to push himself, as he won't be able to fight if they encounter a beast. He then carries him and starts running at high speed, and Iberia yells that he's not ready for this yet. It was already night when they finally reached their destination, in the middle of a dark forest. Iberia complains that his arms almost fell off, but they finally made it to the location. The blonde boy explains that his father lives in the forest because the city is too noisy for him to concentrate on creating artifacts. He then warns that the place is full of traps, and Itsuki activates Mana Sense and feels the energy traces. Iberia reassures him and says that as long as he follows him closely, he won't trigger any traps. Suddenly, a trap is triggered and an iron golem emerges from the ground, ready to attack. Itsuki is surprised and wonders if his old man even has humanoid artifacts. Iberia smiles smugly and says it's finally his turn to lead the way, but he remembers there was a trap there, and Itsuki questions if this is really his home. The creature turns and Iberia yells that its power source is the stone in its chest, and that if they destroy it, it will stop moving. Iberia despairs and says this is the most troublesome trap, while the MC notices the more intense mana waves. Itsuki then asks Iberia if there's a way to stop the creature, and he says to aim for the karma stone in its chest. The creature attacks Iberia with a powerful punch, and the blonde boy tries to defend against the blow. Itsuki activates Thunder Wave and says that if he knows the weak spot, he might lose in power, but he's faster. With his increased speed, he charges to attack the iron golem with a precise blow. He realizes that even an artifact has more attack power than him, but knows he can't destroy it as it's meant to protect Iberia's father. The status screen reveals the epic iron golem has 500 attack, 300 agility, 500 defense, and 200 magic. The creature attacks with its fist, and Itsuki and Iberia barely dodge the blow. With his ice armor, he blocks the golem's punch with his thunder and ice blade. With his increased speed, Itsuki manages to immobilize the golem's arms. He then forces its chest open, revealing the karma stone that is its energy source. With a swift movement, he rips the karma stone from the golem's chest, deactivating the creature. The creature then shuts shuts down and becomes completely motionless, with the MC holding its power source. He stares at the stone in his hand, and the shadow of his Shikigami appears behind him, ready for whatever comes next. Suddenly, Iberia screams for him to stop, but a man is already on top of him with a sword. With his eyes glowing red, Itsuki barely dodges the attack, and the man is surprised. With his sword in the ground, the man can't believe he managed to dodge and wonders when he got there. The man introduces himself as Josuke Bokudo and says he thought they were bandits who had broken in. Itsuki is surprised for not having sensed his presence, and the man wonders who this kid is. He is then shocked to realize that the sword the man was using suddenly disappeared. Iberia introduces his friend and says he's level 0 but super strong and that they formed a duo. Josuke says the master is in the back and to be careful, as he's not in a good mood. The white-haired man seems to be furious about something and glares at the group with a dark look. With an excited smile, Iberia shouts for his father and says he passed the qualifiers. He says he completed the nightmare class, placing 4th, and that as promised, he can choose any artifact he wants. But the old man hits him with a hard slap across the face, leaving Iberia completely shocked. The blonde boy asks why his father hit him so hard. With a furious look, the man yells at him to return the dragon equipment he stole. Iberia says he only borrowed it, but the old man warns him that if he uses the equipment for too long, the consequences will be irreversible. Furious, Iberia says he'll never use an artifact made by him again and runs off, throwing his bag on the ground. The old man then turns to Itsuki and asks if he is the second student of Commander Mendo Izumi. He introduces himself and explains that his master sent him for his protection because of the prophecy, and the old man says he's heard about it. The man wonders why the commander would choose such an ordinary-looking boy to be his disciple. Suddenly, he notices something and asks if the boy's level is fixed. The status screen reveals the boy is level 0 and that all his abilities are hidden. The old man then questions if he's faking his stats with some kind of artifact, but the boy says no. With an intrigued look, the man realizes why the commander asked for that in exchange for his protection. He says the boy's master is good at calculating profits and losses and always demands something in return. He then reveals he received a message saying that in exchange for his protection, he should give a certain artifact to the boy. The old man says he doesn't mind giving it but was curious why the commander chose a flawed product. He then shows the critical crystal, a unique artifact that doubles attack power and has a 99% chance of hitting, but the crystal shatters and becomes an item that increases attack by 10 times, but with a 0 critical rate that only increases by defeating stronger enemies. The old man explains that the critical rate resets when the user levels up, making it useless for a normal awakened. Itsuki realizes the condition for increasing the critical rate is quite difficult to meet. The old man understands the reason for the request upon seeing the boy's stats and says he's quite special. The man then says he doesn't know how he gets stronger, but that artifact is perfect for someone whose level doesn't increase. He praises him, saying the artifact seems compatible with him, and Itsuki thanks him for the help with his low attack power. The old man explains that the artifact's rank became unknown, and a mysterious effect was added. With that, a dark spear hits the house, causing a large explosion, and the old man screams for his son and Josuke. The old man says he makes the artifacts and the awakened fight with them, and that both are doing it for the survival of humanity. He then turns and sees a gigantic creature with wings and horns, ready to attack. Suddenly, the old man realizes the creature is holding the unconscious body of his son, Iberia. The old man then becomes enraged by the scene, and the creature attacks him with a powerful energy beam. Itsuki activates the Iron Fist of Destruction and prepares for combat with the crystal's new power. Iberia screams in desperation and wonders what happened to his father and Josuke. Suddenly, several other creatures appear, and Josuke counts that there are now 8 of them. The old man thinks that only the commanders know his location and wonders if the monolith's fall was a coincidence. Josuke tells the boy to stay back and that the beasts are already coming toward them. Itsuki feels something approaching at incredible speed and prepares for combat. His Shikigami then appears and alerts him to the presence of the creatures in the forest. He then feels another wave of magical power and realizes it's much more intense than the previous ones. A level 14 horned demon appears, and he realizes the beasts have arrived. He thinks that as he imagined, fighting alone suits him better and prepares for battle. With his ice armor, he says Iberia and his father are hidden in the cabin behind him. He thinks Josuke can withstand Lotus Burst, but the problem is the number of enemies. Josuke then attacks one of the creatures, and the system confirms the activation of the black ice wall. Iberia despairs upon seeing a green barrier forming and wonders why it's there. Itsuki thinks that no matter how many enemies come, he can finish them off quickly with Lotus Burst, but he knows that if he uses the ability recklessly, he might involve the other 2 in the explosion. A level 20, 2-horned guardian beast appears and joins the horde of enemies. Elsewhere, a creature says it has transferred the first wave of slaves to the human world. A powerful being asks which of the 8 demon kings they should entrust the command of the main force to. He says he has noticed the existence of an important person in the human world and orders them to capture him. One of the 8 demon kings, Yama Raja, asks if he will entrust the mission to one of them them as well, but the powerful being says a demon king might destroy the eye he left behind and that he will entrust the mission to a general. He then decides to entrust the command of the main force to the monkey-eating demon. The monkey-eating demon, one of the 8 demon kings, appears, and the powerful being says he hasn't eaten a live human in a long time.